If Donald Trump wins, I'm going to be out of the country.
Get him out.
Listen, if he wins, he won't have to worry about immigration. We'll all go back.
Get him out of here.
I will move to Spain.
Get the hell out of here.
Where would you go? Canada.
Bye-bye. Bye.
I'm 100% moving to Canada. I love Canada.
Bye-bye, darling.
You go be an expatriate.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm moving to
100%
Bye-bye.
If any Republican gets nominated, I'm going to move to Canada with my entire family.
Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Maybe it's time for me to move.
Bye-bye. Okay?
Reserving my ticket to get out of here if you win.
Bye-bye. See you sometime.
I have a house in Spain that is going to be ready right after the election.
Bye-bye. Good luck.
Fine, I'm out.
Bye. Bing.
Siberia.
Ding. Bye-bye.
Nova Scotia.
Bye-bye. Enjoy yourself.
I'm definitely moving to Canada.
Bye-bye.
Straight to hell.
Goddamn right.
Oh, Iceland.
Bye-bye.
And France.
Bye-bye.
Asia's pretty cool.
Bye-bye. Have fun.
Like a mental hospital for a while.
She's an MRF. What's that? Mentally retarded female.
I would move to the Caribbean.
Bye. Enjoy yourself.
Bahamas.
Go have a good day. Bye.
White.
Bye-bye.
I've always wanted to live in Italy.
That's it. Bye-bye. Wave goodbye. Bye-bye.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I am your host, Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic. Gotta keep your chin up even when people claim it's a bad day, which a lot of people think. Given what SCOTUS has decided that today is a bad day, I personally don't think it's that bad a day. I think it's really that noticeable day. I think it's a little bit of an overblown day. But those of you who are unfamiliar with it, that's not what we wanted. Those of you who are unfamiliar with it, those of you who are unfamiliar with the current events, what's going on around the world, and that's why you turn to me, which is a very wise move on your part. You may be unaware that that Supreme Court of the United States has, in fact, rejected Trump's emergency application for a stay of his sentencing, which is scheduled to occur tomorrow morning in lower Manhattan, down at 100 Center Street, New York, in the courtroom with Judge Merchan, which Judge Merchan says that Trump need not attend in person, but that he will allow him to appear via video conference, which is, frankly, rather unusual. Normally, a defendant being sentenced is obliged to be there. And in so doing, I think that Merchan signaled, at the very least, that he recognizes this is not your standard run-of-the-mill type of sentencing hearing. We'll talk a little bit about what it is that happened, break that down for you, break down what the Supreme Court wrote, what that means, all the ramifications, all the implications that we can draw from what they wrote, as well as what the law is and how he will be impacted as a result of this sentencing, even if he's given an unconditional discharge. And we will discuss exactly what an unconditional discharge is, because I think everyone should understand precisely what it means in the eyes of the state of New York, which is what we're going to see the Supreme Court is anticipating Judge Merchan is going to be giving him an unconditional discharge. So we're going to talk about the legal ramifications of that, as well as breaking down for you why it seems likely that speculate why it is that they reached this conclusion, and what the various parties who are involved in this whole process probably see as their motivation for coming to these different conclusions. So, in addition, after I finish with that, I'm going to get in on a little bit more about Karen Bass, mayor of LA, talk a little bit about the LA fires and developments thereof, as well as some of the political battles that have been happening along the way. Before I get to the LA fires, before that, I'll probably talk a little bit about the hypocrisy of certain leftists, like specifically referring to Representative Jamie Raskin and his ridiculous assertions that he made public today regarding what he thinks is appropriate conduct for a judge, specifically referring to the right side of the court, from the Supreme Court of the United States. So that's the agenda. I also have a couple of funny videos that I need to sort of clear out. I got to clear out. It's the end of the week. It's Thursday. So the show might run a little long because I got a couple of videos which I thought were funny. I'm expecting you're likely to agree with me that they're pretty funny. So I plan on sharing that with you as well and going through those and going so I can clean out my cachet for the week. We can close out the week nice and strong because it is Thursday. You know I don't stream tomorrow night. Recently, I haven't been streaming on Saturday night, although I might start getting back into it. We'll see. Then the only way you'll know for sure is if you're signed up at goodlogic.locals.com, where I provide notifications of every appearance I ever make. Anywhere. Here on YouTube, here on Rumble, here on X, Spaces on X, going over to Destiny, going over channel, that channel. Anytime I make an appearance, I put notifications there that everyone can see, find, click, and just jump on in and find me. So that's at goodlogic.locals.com, goodlogic.locals.com. I know I haven't done a stream this week, and I feel terrible about that, very badly about that. I feel yucky about that. I'm not going to kid you. I was thinking about doing a post after party after here. I haven't set one up. I really didn't have plans on what I'm going to do with that. We'll see. Sometimes things come to my attention during the course of the streaming. For all you know, we'll have an after party, an unscheduled, an impromptu after party on Locals. That's over at goodlogic.locals.com, goodlogic.locals.com. Let me catch up on some of these comments that came in here in the early going before we get on into it. I screened Allison Jones rushing from the housetops, but nobody listened. I don't even know what this means. Who's Allison Jones? Allison Jones rushing. Am I the only one who doesn't know what this means? I don't know if you guys have seen. I haven't worn this hoodie in a long time. This was a birthday gift that Lady Lawgic got for me a long time ago. She got this for me a couple months after I first started streaming. I think 4 years ago. So 3.5 years ago. Yeah. So yeah, I don't. Back then, on the back it says Logician because back then we hadn't figured out everything yet. We hadn't figured out follower yet. I disagree with what SCOTUS did, but I understand that Judge Joe Brown made a good argument for why they allowed the sentencing. They're allowing a chance for Merchant to correct his errors on the 10th. He's not correcting his errors. He's not going to correct his errors. That's not what they're allowing for. Now I'm curious what Judge Joe Brown said. Now I'm curious. Now you piqued my interest. If someone has a link for me, you could share it with me via DM. I'll see if I can pull that up. Now I'm very curious what he says. Because I don't think he's going to be correcting any errors at all. Ungag Trump Day coming tomorrow. Can't wait for the insults of his daughter. Yeah, I'm expecting that part of the ramifications of this sentencing is that he will be ungagged. You all know I've been fighting to get him ungagged. Well, we'll see what happens tomorrow. I sort of put things in abeyance until I wanted to see what would happen on the 10th because we knew he was scheduled to appear on the 10th. So I wanted to see whether that was going to happen, whether he was going to go into his administration still carrying a gag. Maybe he will carry a gag going forward. I don't know. We do not know. So depending on what happens with the gag tomorrow will dictate what steps, if any, I'm going to be taking going forward in trying to move to get him ungagged. But I plan on updating you about that next week, God willing. Joe Fetterman, haute couture tonight, looking good. You didn't even know. Walking around in like boxer shorts here. No, but it would be funny. That would be funny. That's pretty good. That's pretty good, Kathy. I didn't even think of the whole Fetterman thing. All right, where was we? All right. You know what? We can start with Raskin. Let's start with Raskin before we get into this. Actually, we'll go back. Let's go back. All day today, people were refreshing what was happening with the court. All day, everyone was refreshing. What's going on with the court? What's going on? They were supposed to put this thing out a long time ago. What Democrat Jamie Raskin was saying was that Alito has to recuse himself. This is before the court gave its decision so far. Raskin says Alito must recuse after private call with Trump reported by commondreams.org. I don't know what that is, but Alito claims it was to help a former clerk get a job, wrote one legal commentator. It doesn't matter. Federal law requires Alito now be disqualified from the Trump stay petition. Following the revelation that Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito, a private phone call with Trump the day before Trump's legal team petitioned the Supreme Court to halt his sentencing in his New York hush money case, Congressman Jamie Raskin was among those Thursday who called for Alito's recusal from the high-profile case. ABC News first reported the call between Trump and Alito, which took place Tuesday, and that Alito subsequently claimed concerned one of Alito's former law clerks who is seeking a job in the new administration. William Levi, one of my former law clerks, asked me to take a call from President-elect Trump regarding his qualifications to serve in a government position, Alito explained to ABC News in a statement. Wednesday morning, Trump's legal team filed an emergency request with the Supreme Court to pause his sentencing in New York on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in connection to the whole Stormy Daniels issue. Alito said that he and Trump did not discuss Trump's emergency request. Raskin, ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, denounced the call as a breach of judicial ethics in a statement Thursday, adding, especially when paired with his troubling past partisan ideological activity in favor of Trump, Justice Alito's decision to have a personal phone call with President Trump, who obviously has an active and deeply personal matter before the court, makes clear that he fundamentally misunderstands the basic requirements of judicial ethics, or more likely believes himself to be above judicial ethics altogether. What a jackass. I'm sorry. This is a statement. Here's the thing. Jamie Raskin's an attorney. Okay? We're officers of the court. We're all attorneys are considered officers of the court. I don't know what that term means. It has a certain ramification. But part of that, what comes with that is a responsibility that when you're dealing with a court, particularly a court that holds sway over you, there's a certain level of how you reference various judges, justices. And I know I've been very critical. You can say, Joe, what are you talking about? You've hated on a justice from now and again, and that's true. That's true. I have. When I've disagreed with their logic or I've questioned what the heck they're thinking, I have been extremely vocal about it. So I want to be crystal clear so no one thinks I'm talking out of two sides of my mouth. Joe, yesterday you're sitting here criticizing Justice X, and today you're saying that Raskin is doing something wrong with his criticism of Alito. Yeah, there is a very big distinction, because when I'm criticizing Justice X, I'll see something that they write, say, or ask in an oral argument. I'll be like, this is completely illogical, and I'll question and I'll explain to you why there's a lack of logic. This is very different from making an allegation that Justice Alito disregards his judicial ethics, which, there's a lot of judges on the left that I disagree with in New York, but I'm officer of the court in the state of New York. I would never publicly make a statement to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people that this person doesn't have ethics. I might say that about a judge who I'm not in their jurisdiction, but someone who I'm admitted to practice before them. It feels like it's a different thing, because in this realm, in this, as understanding how the strata works over here, understanding how the whole system is set up, there's a certain level of deference that unless something is proven, with evidence that someone acts without ethics, to just accuse a judge of being unethical, a judge who you're under their purview of acting unethically without having a shred of actual evidence, it's purely speculative on his part, is gross and irresponsible, particularly for a sitting congressman. This is Who the hell are you? You're sitting here saying that he believes himself to be above judicial ethics altogether. Everything about this is... If I criticize a judge, I don't know if I'm expressing this sufficiently well, because it feels very different. I've criticized Judge Merchan over and over again. For crying out loud, I've sued Judge Merchan, right? I mean, this case, Good Lawgic versus Merchan. I've sued Judge Merchan. I might internally harbor certain perspectives about Judge Merchan, but there's a difference between harboring those perspectives and expressing them to the public, particularly when you're a public figure who's an officer of the courts. So you want to talk to me about some judge in a different state, some federal judge who's, not here? Yeah, I might be very aggressive. If I'm talking about the logic of a judge I disagree with, I might be very aggressive, even if they're from my jurisdiction. But to impugn the integrity of a guy on purely speculative basis, of a male or female judge on purely speculative bases, you would never hear me say that Sotomayor, even though I might disagree with Sotomayor on 999 out of 1,000 legal issues or whatever, you would never hear me ever make an accusation that she believes that that ethics don't bind her, or make an accusation that I would say about perhaps any politician. I would never say that a judge who I disagree with is corrupt. And if I wasn't a lawyer, if I didn't have the status of being an officer of the court, I might actually say it. I might be thinking it and feeling it, but there's a difference between thinking and feeling it and saying it. And it's very irresponsible for a freaking congressman. You're a congressman, and you're sitting here talking about the Supreme Court and spitting on their ethics, saying that he's willfully flouting his ethics. More likely believes himself to be above judicial ethics altogether. That's freaking sanctionable. This is just wrong. And what's particularly gross about this is the hypocrisy of this entire scenario here. When I talk about Judge Merchan and the gag and the whole issue with respect to his daughter, you've never ever, and I'm 98% sure, you go through any clip I've ever said, you will never hear me once make the claim that Judge Merchan does what he's doing because Lauren Merchan, his daughter, is getting paid millions of dollars. I will talk about how his daughter is getting paid millions of dollars. I'll say how this is terrible, how it's improper for him to be sitting on this case. I think it's ridiculous that he's not recusing himself from it. I think that's a ridiculous decision on his case. But you will never hear me. I'm 98% positive. You never once heard me say he made this decision against Trump because Lauren Merchan. You never ever hear me say that. Nor would I. If this case was in a different jurisdiction, this case is in Ohio, it's in California, it's a different jurisdiction, which isn't relevant over here. Yeah, sure, you might hear me say something like that. That's very possible. But you would never hear me say that about a judge from New York. Since I practice in the state of New York, you would never hear me say the reason he did this is because he's corrupt and he's trying to help this. You don't say that. You just don't. It's wrong. It's really wrong. Because the reason that's significant, the reason that's a very significant thing is because the way, if we're ever going to rebuild the integrity of this country, there are ultimately you have to come back to certain expectations as to how we're going to interact with each other. So when we see breaches of people ignoring that, especially at that level where you're an attorney, he's not just an attorney, by the way. He's considered by the left, you have to assume he's considered by the left to be, if not the top attorney amongst the Democrats, certainly one of the top 5 in all of Congress. And I know this because they had him be the attorney who was leading the impeachment charge in presenting the case before the Senate. I think both impeachments against Trump, they had him leading it. So this is the attorney, the top Democrat attorney from Congress coming out here making a claim that a justice is unethical, a Supreme Court justice is unethical. If you want to do that, if you're bringing articles of impeachment and that's why you're making it, now you're making a legal claim. Now you're making a legal statement. Now you're trying to say because of this person's lack of ethics, they have to be removed. That would be one thing. That would be totally fine. Everyone understands in papers you have to write. You can't pull any punches. Everyone understands that. You're just sitting there spouting off the mouth, your stupid big fat mouth. You're throwing it out there. You're just gonna be like, what are you, some Asian woman sitting there in a nail parlor salon? And you're saying that just like you're just babbling at the mouth. Who the hell do you think you are? It's gross. It's gross. And it's an impediment to America righting itself back to a place that's healthy. It's an impediment to us actually coming back to a place of normalcy. Can you ever imagine a congressman 50 years ago saying, oh, the Supreme Court justice is unethical? But they just completely rip up all the standards as to how we operate with each other. Because it was David Pollack, who I was in an X space with earlier today, who correctly stated this. Leftist ideology, promoting and stating leftist ideology trumps everything. 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 There's nothing they will not stamp on. There is nothing, there's no decency, there's no logic, there's no virtue that is not is not properly crushed under the heel of someone expressing their leftist ideology. I have to express my leftist ideology, and it doesn't matter if that ends up with our court system in shambles. I have to express my leftist ideology. It does not matter if that means that our fire department is depleted, and accordingly, people will die in a fire. And billions of dollars of property will be destroyed and natural resources destroyed because everyone needs to know just how virtuous I am and what a great person I am. And that I'm the person here who's putting this person who's borderline incompetent in a position of power because everyone needs to know, oh, I stand with the good people because I'm actually virtuous, meritorious, and I'm such a great, holy person. I'm the one who has to tell everyone that I'm standing up for the little fish there. So if you don't have enough water there for your fires, I'm going to divert that water over to protect some stupid fish, the Delta smelt, that I've got to protect that because everyone needs to know that I'm standing up for the Delta smelt. And that temporary blessing of people thinking that I'm a good and virtuous person. Oh, look at him. He's standing up for the Delta smelt. That trumps people living through a fire. That's more important. It's more important that everyone understand that I'm an ally and I stand with community A, B, C. You fill in the blanks. You can call it gay, trans, MAPS. And I want to be clear because I just threw those three together. Those three are very, very, very different from each other. Okay? Very, very different. I came up with those three because that's what we've seen develop over time. But I don't think it's fair, right, or appropriate for even a second. And I think it's actually offensive as all get out that the LGBTQ community is lumped together the way they are. Because let me tell you something. The L, the G, and the B, all of those folks, consenting adults doing whatever the heck they want to do, I don't care. And if you're an adult, you're doing whatever you do, I don't care. But lumping them all together, especially now that maps are being brought on in there, horrible. It's actually a slur against the L, G, and B that they get thrown together with those. I actually think you're actually slurring them because you're implying that they're okay with a lot of the crap that the T is certainly okay with. But my point is that it's like, oh, okay, well, look, promoting my leftist ideology is so important that I don't care if it's affecting the well-being and development of young children. I don't care if it's going to result in them cutting off their own genitalia, because this way everyone knows that I'm an ally, I'm a good person. Over and over and over and over and over again. The statement of standing with leftist virtue ideology always trumps common sense. It trumps well-being. It trumps health. It trumps economy. It trumps everything. Everyone needs to know that I stand up for the climate. So even though I'm promoting an idea which is ultimately long-term terrible for the climate, terrible, awful, makes the situation much, much worse. But everyone needs to know that I believe in the climate, and that's why I'm promoting this thing here, like windmills, which ultimately is worse for the climate. Solar, which ends up, the solar panels end up being worse for the climate. But everyone needs to know that I'm an ally. So since people need to know I'm an ally, I'm going to promote something that has zero common sense, is transparently stupid, is dangerous, and ultimately self-defeating, despite being, in addition to being a ridiculously stupid economic drain. But everyone needs to know that I'm an ally of the planet. Because that's really all that matters, is that everyone knows that I'm a good person, even though I'm an idiot. Even though I'm damaging the planet, even though I'm hurting the very people or the very entities I'm purporting to be standing up for. Every time they stood up for the black community, every policy they put in for the black community made life worse for the black community. Every single time. Every time. Whether it was like the way they instituted welfare or housing and all these different things, which I understand that the indigent sometimes need a leg up. I get that. And it's true. It's definitely true. But the way they implemented policies in order to sort of defeat anyone's desire and basically say you're stupid if you go get a job, this is self-defeating, not only to the economy, not only to the American public, but worst of all, to the black community. Because you basically sap from them any sort of desire to get off their butts and actually go get a job. If you tell them, hey, you're going to be doing better financially if you just sit on your butt. And this is so obvious to anyone who thinks it through for 3 minutes, but no, they don't care if it's obvious. They don't care if it's true. They don't care if it's actually helping anyone. All they actually give the slightest damn about at all is the notion that people out there should identify the term good person with me. That's all they care about. Even if I'm a stupid person, I'm an evil person, I'm a terrible person, I'm a destructive person. But as long as folks out there associate the term good person with me, that is all I care about. And if I'm harming society, damning society, making life worse for the very people I'm purporting to stand up for, I don't give a damn at all, because all that really matters at the end of the day is that people think I'm a great person. And enter with that Jamie Raskin here, coming in here saying, oh yeah, this judge here thinks that he's above judicial ethics altogether. Let's just make everyone look at the Supreme Court as if everyone, because you throw this out there, what happens is people on the right start saying, oh, I wonder why Sotomayor is making this decision. Obviously, it's got some issue with her ethics, or I wonder why Kagan's doing that. You're hurting the very establishment that you hold so dear. For what? With your stupid, empty, baseless claims. Why? So that idiots on your side, I'll be like, wow, Raskin's such a good guy. You stupid, ridiculous joke of a human being. I didn't expect to rant about all that, but I did. And the reason it's particularly hypocritical, is because we just saw here a judge who's sitting on this case, Judge Merchan, who, by every account, even most attorneys on the left were like, I don't know how he's not recusing himself from this. I mean, his own daughter is raking in millions of dollars being the head of a PR firm for Biden and then for Kamala. How on earth is this guy not recusing himself? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. Again, and I want to be clear because I know people get confused. I'm not saying he did anything corrupt. I'm simply saying it looks ugly. It's bad for justice when someone who clearly has a vested interest that close to home in giving a terrible outcome for the defendant, it clearly makes the public disrespect our judiciary. It makes them look at our judiciary as if it's a joke. So I think that what Judge Merchan did here is he weakened our judiciary. He made the New York judicial system look corrupt. And I'm not saying he's corrupt. I'm simply saying that he left that impression on the public because anyone who looks at this says that doesn't make any sense. That's crazy. It's like stupid. Why would this person? Well, all the judges in New York, he's the only judge who can sit on this case. So that's why I say that it's such utter hypocrisy. Judge Merchan sat for months gagging Trump, silencing him, punishing him for various statements, not even telling him what he could say, what he couldn't say, leaving him twisting in the wind as to what it is that he's allowed to say, is not allowed to say, which was further chilling his speech beyond what it should have been. And beyond, it shouldn't have been chilled at all. There should have never ever been a gag. You know how I feel about that, the unconstitutionality of that. But then even taking a step further by not defining the parameters, so that he's basically left in jeopardy unless he makes the parameters even bigger than they actually are supposed to be. So all of these things that he did, and sitting in there and forcing him to come down to that courtroom day after day after day after day, when he's in the middle of a presidential, when he's trying to run for president of the United States, forcing him to sit in here on these charges that sound so convoluted that it takes 20 minutes to explain to another lawyer what the basis of the charge are. Forget trying to get lay people to try to understand it. It's convoluted, like craziness is how they were searching and trying to find some way to come after him. He forces him to come in there for a month, day after day, sitting there in this trial, paying millions of dollars in attorney's fees. And this guy, so this guy refuses to recuse himself despite these what to most attorneys seem like really obscene ties. And now this clown, this clown over here, Jamie Raskin, comes out here and starts talking about how it's unethical that Judge Alito had a 10-minute phone call with Trump while there was no case pending. It happened to be a day before Trump filed a case, but he has a 10-minute phone call with Trump, says he didn't talk to him about this case at all, and Raskin is calling him unethical for refusing to recuse himself. Get off your stupid high horse, you shill of a man. You fake, empty loser. God. You know, I noticed that when I rant, there's like the first initial burst, and then I stop. And then there's the second burst, the second wave that comes out. Interesting. That's the way my brain works. That's the way my brain works. It's the same thing when I sneeze. I'll do a double sneeze. And when I retch, there's always a double retch. Was that TMI? Was that TMI? I don't hold back from you guys. You're my people. I don't hold back from you. I give you everything. I give you everything. Like blood, sweat, and tears. I give you everything. I gave you everything. Rushing was the other pick instead of Barrett. Oh, I screened Allison Jones rushing from the house tops, but nobody listened. Oh, Rushing was the other pick instead of Barrett. Rushing clerk for Gorsuch. Barrett is a follower and always does precedent or what her boss Roberts does. She's an establishment woman. She's like, let's trust the establishment. The establishment says, let's trust in our institutions. Let's trust in that everyone here, that ultimately everything's going to work out okay for everyone. Establishment people ignore corruption. And they don't really, the sweatshirt is the fetter human. Not predicting what Mershon will do. What could probably happen? I don't expect it. If SCOTUS does not step in on this case at sentencing, the case law on president immunity is hot garbage. We're going to look at what they said. Amy Coney Barrett was such a mistake. Yep. I think she was a terrible choice. We all loved her at the confirmation hearing. She seems so cool. Oh my God. She's terrible. X, now part of SCOTUS, is awesome. Is not part of SCOTUS. It is? SCOTUS? I don't know what that means. Raskin wore headscarves during chemo. Enough said. Like, I'm not going to judge him on that. I'm not going to judge him on that. But SCOTUS doesn't step in, then a little species judge can override SCOTUS case law. Merchan ever stayed on the trail to wait for overrode the SCOTUS case law on presidential immunity even after the ruling trial error. I have a lot to talk about on this, and I'm going to get to it. Rumpel, foreskin, Raskin is trying to score far left brown nose points to satanic overlords. Again, express a quick, Joe. This rant is great. The next leftist thing is to allow kids to play with live cobras because it helps transition. What? Did you have a cigarette today? You're on fire. You only deal with your super chats, buddy. I'm dealing with it. The rock goes all the way to the Supreme Court. After January 20th, Trump should issue an EO giving the judge 24/7, 365 Secret Service protection just to make his life difficult. Did I miss? I don't think I missed anything here. If I missed anything in the Rumble, I thought I had it open, but I didn't. I opened it now. If I missed something, then someone can share with me. I'm pretty sure. I don't think I missed anything. All right. Let's take a look at what SCOTUS did. Now that we talked about Raskin, and we got that off my chest. Now that I got Raskin off my chest. Don't worry. Can you guys read this? This is what the court wrote. I actually screenshotted this, and this is my screenshot. The application for stay presented to Justice Sotomayor, and by her referral to the court, is denied. So what this first part of the sentence means is this. Trump had his case. He had his trial. He wanted to stay the sentencing. So he appealed. So he asked the court to stay. They said no. He went to the first department. They said no. Went to the Court of Appeals. They said no. Court of Appeals said no. He went to the Supreme Court of the United States. And he brought an emergency application saying, hey, this is about to happen. I need relief from you right now. I need you to stay this thing. That sentencing should not happen because I have this appeal up about whether or not I deserve presidential, whether or not the presidential immunity that it automatically attached to me because I'm a president, whether that serves as a basis to overturn these guilt verdicts, 34 guilt verdicts. Because as you may recall, or you may have forgotten, the timeline of the sequence of events here is he was sentenced in late April, early May. He went through the whole trial during the early spring. And it was only in late June, early July that there was a decision from the Supreme Court about presidential immunity. When the Supreme Court, in the case of Trump, the United States versus Trump, weighed in on presidential immunity in the D.C. case, which is where the presidential immunity came up. So when they weighed in on that, they set down how presidential immunity works. And they said there's three different categories of things presidents do which merit different types of treatment from a court that is looking to introduce evidence related to those types of activities. There's certain core functions that he engages in, and that during the course of him, and that those are functions that are expressly provided for. Those are express constitutional duties of the president. Constitutional duties of a president are things he can never be prosecuted. Nothing related to that can come up at all. So his role as commander-in-chief can never be prosecuted at all. Can never be questioned. Doesn't have the answer to them. No one can ever charge him criminally for anything he does in his role as commander-in-chief. And there are other things that he has, whether it relates to his pardon power. There are certain express areas. Then there are areas which are within the orbit of what he does, but not expressly provided for, as far as this is what you are obligated to do as president of the United States. Most people would say that those are things like, for example, helping ensure that elections in different states are being run properly. That's something a president is more likely to do than you or me, right? It's in the orbit of this is a presidential type thing. He's chief of the executive branch. And even though if in his role as chief of the executive branch, certainly if it relates to a federal election, is it directly what he's supposed to be doing? It's definitely in there. Definitely in there. And you could even say a state election in theory that would have nothing to do with the presidential election. Even that is probably in there. A little bit less so, right? Because if it's purely a state matter, not federal matter. Even because the idea of having integrity in our elections, you can understand how this ties into his role as president. All of these things that tie in to that orbit, which is much broader. You have your core functions, and then probably much, much, much broader than that, are different things that a president may do. Yeah, in the direct zone there is negotiating with foreign dignitaries. Never prosecutable. Because he's the chief liaison in the United States to the rest of the world. Never prosecutable. But things that are not directly in that sphere in the orbit, that we're going to give him a very broad pass. And there's a heavy presumption, essentially, in his favor that it's not prosecutable. You got to show that his motivations there were really, really agreed. And you can't. There's a lot of restrictions on those matters. And then you have stuff that's outside this wide zone, which is his personal life. His personal life, he is prosecutable for, and that he could face charges for that. I actually thought that the court's ruling in Trump versus the United States made a lot of sense. It was very consistent with what I was predicting they would say. It was the most logical way to read the implications of the Constitution, which implied that there was, you talk about the impeachment clause, which implied that there's presidential immunity. Everything there made a lot of sense, and it enables a president to actually carry out his, or I guess one day, her functions as president. So everything they said there now makes you, and then they said when you're looking at a list of charges in an indictment and different facts that are claimed in there, different facts have to be adduced and have to be categorized. Which of those three zones is it in? Is it in here, or is it all the way out in left field? Nothing to do with that personal life. And every allegation. So now, when we look at the whole Stormy Daniels case, to be fair, the vast majority of the charges that are levied against him have very little to do with this is what a president has to do. So if this is how he fulfills his duties and does and meets his responsibilities, that doesn't mean that there was nothing in there. And what Trump was saying is there were some things in there, and to the extent that there was some things in there and they were alluded to in the trial improperly, that was a violation of my rights, and that was a violation, and the entire trial should be, and the resulting verdict must be overturned, which is, I think, is a fair argument to make. And it's on its way, and Judge Merchan disagreed with him, and it's working its way through the appellate process in the state of New York. But meanwhile, we have this sentencing thing that's happening here. So the court is saying that the application for stay, so he wants to stay the sentencing. So he made an application. Whoa, didn't mean to do that. Let's undo all that stuff. The application for stay presented to Justice Sotomayor. Why did he go to Sotomayor? Because New York State is in the Second Circuit. Justice Sotomayor, different justices are assigned to be overseeing each circuit, has a different justice. Well, some justices, there's more than nine circuits. Some justices have more than one. But each circuit has its particular justice, who is the justice that you go to when you're seeking emergency applications. The same Justice Sotomayor that I went to when I was seeking to get in the Supreme Court. So what did she do with it? And she, instead of her rejecting it or accepting it outright, which she certainly would have rejected it, she referred it to the court. So normally this would be a two-step process. And I'm going to say this to the credit of Sotomayor. So she referred it to the court, meaning she could have just said, it's in my wheelhouse. I get to decide, accept or reject it. But she didn't do that. She didn't take that upon herself. She took it to the court and said, we're going to decide this as a group rather than me deciding this individually. So she refers it to the court, and the court is denying it for inter alia. Inter alia, which I usually would read as inter alia. Inter alia is a Latin term which means amongst other things. For the following reasons. Why is it being denied? Why is his stay denied? Stay being denied means that the sentencing that he wants to put on hold is not being put on. He's applying to have it put on hold. We're denying his request to have it put on hold. It's going forward January 10th, tomorrow morning. So what are the reasons? First, the alleged evidentiary violations of President-elect Trump's state court trial can be addressed in the ordinary course of appeal. So, whatever evidentiary violations there were, so that can go forward. That's going to go forward. That's going to work its way through the New York appeals process. So you don't need to have a stay on that. That can happen even after he's sentenced. Second, the burden that sentencing will pose on the president-elect's responsibilities is relatively insubstantial in light of the trial. Why we think that there's this burden of what do you mean he might go to jail? No, we think it's insubstantial in light of the court's stated intent to impose a sentence of unconditional discharge after a brief virtual hearing. When I look at this sentence, I'll break this down for you in a moment. Who signed off on that? 5 justices. 4 justices disagreed and said they would have granted a stay. Those 4 justices who would have granted a stay are, you knew it was going to be Thomas, Alito, and Gorsuch. The 4th one is Kavanaugh over here. They would grant the application and issue a stay and stop this sentence from going forward. So that means the 5 justices who decided to deny this stay are Chief Justice Roberts, Sotomayor, Kagan, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and Amy Coney Barrett. Those 5 justices, it's the 4 women and Roberts. The 4 female justices and Roberts all came together and said, we're denying this stay. Go ahead and sentence him, Merchan. Now, the burden, what is it? This second reason they say? So they say this is not going to be such a big burden on him. It's not really going to be an imposition. How not? Well, first and foremost, one element is that he doesn't have to appear there in person. It's a brief virtual hearing. Right? That's all you got to do. Just turn on your camera. You don't have to be there. This is very unusual. I'm not going to kid you. This is highly unusual that Judge Merchan allows him to appear by a brief virtual hearing. In most cases, when we're not in the middle of lockdowns, criminal defendants must appear in court when they're being sentenced. I can't recall prior to the 2020 lockdowns ever having a scenario where you would hear having a virtual hearing. That's just not how courts operate. They're like, no, you're going to be sentenced. And logic dictates that the reason they would say such a thing is because if the person's being sentenced to guilt, they're usually going to remand him into custody immediately. So you don't want him to be on the other side of the planet. So a brief virtual hearing, meaning it's not going to interrupt his day. He doesn't have to fly to New York. He doesn't have to go and make an appearance. He can just turn on his phone, sitting in the comfort of his own bed in Mar-a-Lago, and appear that way, and that would be totally fine. So that's not really much of an inconvenience. So that's relatively insubstantial burden. The other is that what about his sentence? Well, we think his sentence is not going to be anything, since he has the judge said that he stated intent to impose a sentence of unconditional discharge. Unconditional discharge. What does that mean? What is a sentence of unconditional discharge? Well, you can look up New York Consolidated Laws Penal Code 65.20. which says sentence of unconditional discharge. The court may impose sentence of unconditional discharge in any case where it's authorized to impose a sentence of conditional discharge under section 65.05, meaning there's no mandatory incarceration. So if you're allowed to have a conditional discharge, then you can also give an unconditional discharge. If the court is the opinion that no purpose would be served by imposing any condition upon the defendant's release. When a sentence of unconditional discharge is imposed for a felony, the court shall set forth in the record the reasons for its action. So he's going to have to set down, if in fact he gives this unconditional discharge, he's going to have to set down on the record what his reasons are for giving this unconditional discharge. In other words, why are you not throwing him in jail? And I'll probably say things like, well, he's recently been elected president of the United States, and I think that given the gravity of his position compared to the nature of these charges, which are relatively insignificant compared to, the task that he's been charged by the people of the United States to perform, that it seems as if that any sort of imposition on his duties and responsibilities would be counterproductive to the betterment of our society, or something to that effect. That's what you would expect him to say when he's giving a reason as to why you're in unconditional discharge. Well, that would be a reason why, right? Sentence. When the court imposes a sentence of unconditional discharge, the defendant shall be released with respect to the conviction for which the sentence imposed without imprisonment, fine, or probation supervision. Nothing. He has nothing. He's unconditionally released. Go. Goodbye. We find you guilty and we're letting you go. A sentence of unconditional discharge is for all purposes a final judgment of conviction. So now you're a convicted felon. In every yardstick, by every metric, you're considered a convicted felon, and who has no penalty to pay whatsoever for his crimes. That's what an unconditional discharge is. And to be clear, the court is saying that the trial court, meaning Merchan here, he has a stated intent. He's announced that he's planning on imposing a sentence of unconditional discharge after just having a brief virtual hearing. So it's no harm, no foul, not going to really hurt him anyway. Why do we have to stay this thing? It's not going to do anything. It's not going to affect his rights in any way, shape, or form. It's going to be an unconditional discharge, and voila. So we don't want to intervene. What is the thinking here? What is going on in the minds of the court? What can we read into this? What do we take away from this? Now, you got 4 justices who are just like, oh, hell no. These 4 over here, hell no. Now you got these 5. Okay, so let's assume that leftists be leftists, not, I'm just saying, that the natural inclination of Sotomayor, Kagan, and Justice Brown Jackson is to be anti-Trump. We'll start with that assumption and pass that on there. What do you think is happening here with Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett that they're joining on here? What do you think is happening? I have my own thoughts, but I'm curious if you have your own thoughts. It'd be cool if you actually drop your thoughts down below right now. Pause the video, drop it down below in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are. Also, while you're here, please like, share, and subscribe. But what is their thinking here when they say, well, it's not going to be really harming him? It is going to make him a convicted felon. And there are ramifications to being a convicted felon. Can't vote in elections. Can't own a gun. Certain countries, in theory, he would need permission to enter. So, what do you think their thinking is? I'll give you my thoughts on that, but I'll let you all weigh in with that while I catch up on some of these chats that have come in here, just to make sure that people don't get mad at me that I'm ignoring the audience. Why are you giving me he's dead? What's that? All right. A question for you to catch down. Can you designate a time of day you will post if when your weekend show is? I start looking at 10 and every 20 minutes because I don't want to miss you, but it kills my evening. Should I text you? Should I text? Should I text? Here's you want to know what happens? I'll tell you what happens. This is what happens on Saturday night. So I'm looking up what happened over the weekend. First, I'm just chilling. And I'm catching up on the news, and I'm trying to decide what am I going to do. What's the what am I going to talk about tonight? What's going to be interesting? I don't want to just talk about the news unless I feel like I can add something to what you could read in a regular article. I don't want to be like certain content producers who basically sit and read an article and give a facial expression or a laugh. I want to give you thoughts. I want to add value. I value your time enough that I want to add value to your perspective on things, or at least what I perceive, I'm hoping, is adding value to your perspective on a particular event or story or things of that nature. So that's why I sort of think to myself when I'm looking at different stories, I sort of internally will react to it, and then I'll say to myself, is this what everyone's thinking, or are other people thinking other stuff? So every once in a while, I'll even have a weeknight that I'll just be like, I don't feel like I'm going to give enough value to this story. Like, I don't think there's enough that I can add here. So then on those circumstances, I sort of feel like some people just like hanging out my chat. I know that. It's like sort of a hangout. It's an opportunity. It's like sort of like having only like I've said many times, I haven't said it recently, that my chat, I treasure you guys in chat, both Rumble and YouTube. Two completely different chats, but I am very privileged to have such a dedicated chat the way I have. And I understand that it's sort of like when I start my show up or even create the link, but really it's once the show starts, when people start coming in. I appreciate the fact that people will come in, hang out, have a good time, and actually interact with people. It's like basically like I'm Sam alone and I'm opening up Cheers, the bar, and people will come in and everyone knows your name and they interact with each other. And the bar is only open if I start the show up. But at the same time, I'm supposed to be talking this. I'm not going to just be making content for the sake of making content where I'm just sort of, sitting here, just, like I gotta be adding something. Because if I just open up and I'm not adding real value, I think that my show would suffer over the long term. So that's why I take very seriously that I need to be adding some sort of value. So that's why, and sometimes I won't think of like an angle until and then when I'll think of an angle, I'll be like, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I'll be looking at the clock and be like, oh my God, it's 10:30 already. I've got to make a thumbnail and then I got to put it together and then, throw everything up there. And whatever time I'm posting it, I don't want to start for at least 30 minutes until after it's posted so that everyone gets notifications. Because if I don't put it out, if I don't give 30-minute notice, I feel like nobody gets notifications. I feel like that basically 20% of my audience will show up. Maybe if I'm lucky, 40. So I have to give 30-minute notice. And now all of a sudden I'm starting at 1 o'clock in the morning. And then I'm just like, so that's why I sort of, and I don't like doing that because people are tired and they're not coming in also. So that's why I sort of struggle, because sometimes it's really a matter of I'm just trying to figure out what do I really want to talk about on my show. And then I need to, and I'm sort of like refining it. What else? And sometimes when I'm covering a show, I'll be prepping it and I'll be like, yeah, okay, this I think is my show tonight. And then some news will break and I'll just be like, oh no, hell with that. Everything I spent all day on, this is a much bigger story. This is like a much bigger deal. I was going to be spending a lot more time talking about the LA fires before I saw this SCOTUS decision. I was like, yeah, this is where we're going tonight. Tonight I'm spending most of my night talking about SCOTUS. So, and exactly how this thing broke down and what we can take away from it and what the ramifications are. And I think there's a lot of really interesting legal issues that revolve around this. So that's why I'm constantly trying to figure out how to deliver the best product possible that is going to be educational and entertaining, and that I can be informative, and that we can all have a good time. So that's why the schedule ends up coming out the way it is. I will try to do, this is what I can try to do. I could try to put a post up saying I'm planning to have a show probably starting around at time X, especially if it's a late night. I'll try. I'll be cognizant that what you're saying here, Adrian, is probably a thought that's shared by a lot of people. So I'll try to do that on Locals. We'll see. Rumble before was trying to score far. We got this before, right? I know you said that. You sent that to me a while ago. I don't know how I missed that chat earlier, Adrian. That's harsh. That's harsh. Is it possible that Barrett and Roberts want to wait until sentencing? Post-sentencing is the strongest case for appeal. Trump's brief was weak, in my honest opinion. I don't think so. It's also, you have to realize that when you're asking for a stay, you have to establish that there's a strong likelihood of success. Frankly, look, balancing of equities would be in his favor, I think. I think there are political issues here. We'll talk about it soon. Let me get to this. I don't think Raskin went through chemo. I think he had a hair transplant. When he removed his rag, he had a full set of hair. He did, right? He had a full set of hair. Judge Chipmunk Chuckin altered trial to allow for ruling in Merchand's court. He expedited his proceeding from pretrial to right now because, like Raskin, in my opinion, Merchand is a party show. I understand why you think that. I got it. I think proper response to Trump would be not to show up and dare the courts to haul him. Do you think that Roberts and the ladies let the sentence proceed because they perceive more or less a slap on the wrist? That's part of what they said. Yes, Malcolm. They said he's going to get just a slap on the wrist. And that's what they promised him. I'll tell you this much. I'll bet they went further than that. I'll bet they would. I would be surprised if they didn't go even further than that. And I'll get into that in a moment. Just a moment. One old guy, it burdens the institution, office of president of the U.S. and U.S. say that they're considering that burden. It still makes President Trump the first convicted felon in the history of the country, which is a burden on the USA. It is a burden. It is a burden. All right, let me start getting. Oh, Hala, good to see you, brother. Something ain't right. Don't you suspect that there's some reason to get a felony finalized for some other legal or political maneuver later? No trust. All right. If President can pardon America, he pardons someone who attempts to assassinate his political opponent only from federal charges, not from state charges. Trump's counsel should just impose a burden in their response. To press this issue any further will be met with Merchant going through the same burden Trump has been put through since 2020. Clown world. Okay. Definitely mostly not a cult. All right. So there's a bunch of thoughts here that I have a whole lot of thoughts that I want to share with you about this. A whole lot of thoughts. Okay. So Malcolm raised this question. Do you think that Robertson and Lays let the sentence proceed because they perceived more or less a slap on the wrist? They definitely was. That was part of the logic that they employed here. I said I'm going to go further on that, and this is what I meant by that. If I'm Justice Roberts, and I'm not saying he did this, I don't know that he did this, or Amy Coney Barrett. This issue comes up here. I want you to just put yourself in the seat of the Chief Justice and think like you think, like we've seen him display. He thinks that he's a hardcore institutionalist. He believes in institutions here. And that he's sensitive to the politicization and on both sides. Rather not bring the SCOTUS, he'd rather avoid having SCOTUS brought in on politics. He doesn't want to have him brought in on politics. He doesn't like having the country believe, because he's the Chief Justice. So I think he likely looks at this court as, they call it the Roberts Court, right? It's the Roberts Court. So that this is, part of his legacy. And trust me, that he, like all men of his age and stature, definitely cares a lot about his legacy. He wants to be remembered well. And I think that's a large part of the motivating factor to what he does. So he wants to be remembered well. And I think that if you look at it from that perspective, you can start to get a better feel for how he handles some of his cases, like this case right here. Because if he jumps in and says, and the headlines all read, Supreme Court stops New York sentence from happening, which is what it would say if they granted Trump the relief. Trump comes in here now, asks for relief. There's 34 guilty verdicts. If they intercede right here, right now, this will be known as the 6-3 court that stepped in and stopped a proper conviction, and that you would have 70 million people, 70 million Kamala voters, would all sit there thinking, oh, you see, the court is standing up there for Trump. It's a twisted court and all that other stuff. Would they be correct in making that conclusion? No, I don't think they'd be correct at all. But he doesn't care about whether or not they're correct. He simply cares, I would think, as to that it would bother him that people think that he's taking his court to protect Trump. This is why we saw in Texas versus Pennsylvania, they didn't even touch the case. It's like, I'm keeping my nose out of this political just murkiness. So, and similarly, Amy Coney Barrett, similar philosophy of we're above all this. We're not dealing with this. This is not something we should be dealing with here. So they come here. We're just going to reject this and let the courts figure everything out and sort everything out. But you would not do that. Let's assume they had no ink and no direction at all as to what Judge Merchan was going to do. Let's say they had no idea what he would do. The maximum sentence that Merchan, and he still could, in theory, issue a sentence in this case of up to 20 years. 34 felonies all being brought together as far as basically one act on top of the other, on top of another, top of another, top of another, each of them being for 1 year, 34 guilty verdicts. The statute caps out a maximum of 20 years. Can't give 34 years. And give a cap of 20 years. He comes out tomorrow and gives a sentence of 20 years and calls for him to be immediately remanded, to return himself in and to correctional facility, or to be locked down in Mar-a-Lago, or any other form of incarceration, or hell, even probation. Even probation. Clearly, that would be basically an insane situation for the United States of America. That would be an insane situation for the United States of America. So I have little doubt. I would be surprised if a member of the Supreme Court or someone fairly high up in some clerk that's fairly high up for Justice Roberts or Justice Barrett got on the phone with Judge Merchan themselves and said, read to me your freaking order. I want to know what you are going to be, what you're sentencing him. Are you really? Because, yeah, he floated out that he's leaning towards, what he said is, I'm leaning towards an unconditional discharge. Before you issue an order like this, saying, I'm going to let this judge go ahead and sentence him, I would be very disappointed in Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett if they do not know line by line what's written there, because he wrote this alone. He could have written this months ago. He might have had to edit it here and there. Certainly since the election, he's had plenty of time to write it. So there's no question that on the eve of it being presented, this sentence, he's not staying up writing it tonight. This has been written for at least a week. I am fairly certain I would be disappointed. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this. I'm not saying this. I don't think there's anything wrong with this. I would hope that Justice Roberts or his clerk, Justice Barrett, her clerks, some of their clerks, maybe a bunch of their clerks, maybe it was a joint phone call. I don't know. But I would be disappointed if there was not conversation between Merchan and his staff and the Supreme Court and their staff, where the Supreme Court is not guessing as to what the sentence is going to be. It's not like, look, we're going to trust him that we think that we're hopeful everything's going to work out. We're hopeful he's not going to be incarcerated. We're hopeful that he's not going to have to turn into a probation officer every week, twice a week for the next 6 months. We're hopeful. We're hopeful that he doesn't order something like that. I don't buy that for a second. I think that's a crazy assumption to think that Justice Roberts would go out and sit there saying, "Oh, I hope he gives the unconditional release," without knowing. They know that this is an unconditional release. They know it because they spoke to Merchan. If not directly, then through various agents. Either their clerks, Merchan's clerks, Merchan himself. It could have been, John Roberts on the phone with Juan Merchan. I don't know. But one way or another, I would be embarrassed for the Supreme Court if they do not know without any hesitation at all that indeed tomorrow morning Judge Juan Merchan is going to sentence an unconditional release on all these charges. There's nothing stopping them from calling him and saying, "Hey, what are you going to be ordering? What's your planned order?" And Juan Merchan presumably would tell him the truth, right? So that's why they would feel comfortable saying, "Hey," they're not going to say, "We spoke to Juan Merchan, and Merchan promised us that he's going to give an unconditional release," because that's embarrassing they would feel like that's embarrassing to everyone involved, right? They're not going to write that. So instead, how do they frame it in their order? They frame it as, in light of the trial court's stated intent, we have a stated intent to an unconditional discharge. They stated, this whole stated intent thing. When they say stated intent, what they really mean is, he told us. He told us. We know. We can't tell you that we know. People would think it's wrong for us to know, but we know. We know that's going to be an unconditional discharge. So that's why I'm telling you now. When they say, in light of the trial court's stated intent, I can guarantee you that they know for certain from talking to the man himself, Judge Juan Merchan, that they are positive that it's going to be an unconditional discharge. But they're not going to write that in the order. So instead, they write, there's a stated intent, so we're hopeful that everything's going to work out. Because the last thing you want to do is say, we think he's going to give an unconditional discharge, and then sure enough, he's incarcerated for the next 6 months. And now this falls back in their lap. Why would you do such a thing? Why would you rely on such a thing where you can just pick up the phone and call him? It's a listed number. Any one of you can Google it and find his chamber numbers. And trust me, if you call up the chamber and you say, "Hi, I'm John Smith, clerk for Chief Justice Roberts. I'm trying to reach Judge Juan Merchan," you're going to get on the phone with him really fast. Really fast. If you're not John Smith, chief clerk, don't do that. I'm not suggesting any of you don't do that. Don't do that. No. And I mean that seriously. Don't troll Judge. But I'd be disappointed in him. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you be disappointed? Why would you not call him? Find out what's the order going to say? So let's assume that they know that. Now. So now you're Chief Justice Roberts, and you think to yourself, I don't want to have the country thinking that I'm stopping Merchan from sentencing him. I don't want half the country thinking that. So, seeing as how it's not really going to affect him, and it can work its way through the court, and the court of appeals might ultimately overturn the whole thing anyway. Why do I need to get involved? I don't want to get involved, because if I get involved, there's going to be tens of millions of people who all think that I'm getting involved on political basis, even if it's not for political basis. And I don't want that to stain my legacy. So that would be a reason for specifically for John Roberts to join in with the left and say, no. We're rejecting this case. That would be motivation right there. Now, they also feel like no harm, no foul. This is one element to what I wanted to talk about. Is they know. They know exactly what's happening. They know exactly what's going on here. And they are figuring it's not going to have any impact on him. Now, is that really true, that there is no impact on him? Well, if this case gets overturned, which there's a lot of legal basis for it to get overturned, aside from the presidential immunity, just there's a lot of issues, like legal issues that came up where the judgment here is fraught with legal problems. Whether you're looking at the jury instructions, which seemed, in my personal opinion, hokey, whether you look at in that they didn't require unanimity from on with respect to what the underlying wrongful act was, they allowed them to come to different conclusions and consider that unanimity. Whether you talk about the fact that he didn't even know what the charges were until he got to the jury charges, goes all the way through a trial and doesn't have no idea what he's being charged with. So how do you defend from that? I don't even know what ultimately we're going to spin a wheel at the end of the trial, and it's going to go. Oh, look at this! You got hit with penal. You're like criminal. What? Which one? 307. What? Which one? Yeah. So they won't spin the wheel as to what we're going to end up, what charge we're going to try sticking on you at the end. And then throw on top of that the whole presidential immunity thing. There's all sorts of different legal problems here. So Judge Roberts is probably like, it's probably going to end up being overturned anyway. So even without even come to the whole issue on the immunity, it's all probably going to be overturned. So that would all be bases as to why it is that John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett would be like, let's just not intercede, stay as apolitical as we can, and let it go and deny the application. Does it really not have any impact on him? Are they likely to overturn this case? What's going to happen next? At what point would they overturn it? Does everything get put on hold while he's president? Like everything. Does his appeal get put on hold while he's president? More on that after I get through these chats right here. Letting him get sentenced, doesn't this make it a precedent? No, I would disagree. I don't think it makes it a precedent. Because the question is, should we stop sentencing? It'd be hard to use this as a precedent. It's tricky. It's hard to use this as a precedent. Say we can allow you to go forward with sentencing on what? On presidential immunity issue? Doesn't seem like something's going to come up a lot, right? So, why isn't Merchan being investigated for bribery through Black Dragon? Remember, 4 months. Why isn't Merchan being investigated for bribery through his daughter's business? You have laws, and then you have execution of laws. There's laws, and I'm not alleging that he's bribed. I'm not alleging that. I'm simply saying there's what the law says, and then there's executional law. One of the things that the left learned a long time ago, when George Soros started investing millions and millions and millions of dollars into different district attorneys, is that it's much cheaper and easier rather than to have people not enforce the law than it is to change the law. You got to get a whole bunch of people in there. You got to get a whole bunch of people into state assembly, into Congress, if you want to have a law written. But what if there's a law in the books and no one ever enforces it? That's cheaper and easier. So if you're controlling who the district attorneys are, you don't have to worry about it. Right? So who's going to prosecute him? Who? And tell me who the guy is. Tell me which agency. That's assuming that there was some issue, which I'm not alleging that there is because I'm an officer of the court of the state of New York. Dems take the House in 2026 and immediately impeach him using this case. It would be really... impeachment is for high crimes and misdemeanors. Class E felony, I think they'll struggle. I mean, look, they can impeach him because he for voting in the 2024 election if they want to and saying you're convicted, they could try impeaching him for that. I'm just simply saying to qualify that as high crime and misdemeanor. Good luck. Good luck. If it comes back, what will SCOTUS vote be and why? You mean if it makes it all the way back up to there? What will SCOTUS say? Well, it's not going to, I don't think it's ever going to get, I think they won't touch, I don't think they're ever going to take this case. Assuming that this, I'm moving forward with the presumption that the Supreme Court knows it's an unconditional discharge and that indeed tomorrow we get that unconditional discharge from Raskin. I'm going to come back to this thought though more soon. Let me get to this. One old guy hit me with a fitting. Everyone seems to be looking at the first order of effects of the conviction. They are not considering the second, third order effects. First order is about effects on Trump. The other is legal precedent, diplomatic presidential effectiveness to the future obtuse. And this is part of what I was talking about. And this is sort of what I was leaning at even during my rant earlier. And this is a terrible thing here. It's a terrible thing for him to be formally convicted. The objective, why, if you're on the left, do you care? Why? If you see, why is it so important to Alvin Bragg to get this conviction with an unconditional discharge? You know he's not going to jail. Unconditional discharge means not even a fine. He's not going to pay 10 cents. Why? Why is it so important? This comes back to what I was ranting about in the beginning of the show. So the whole leftist virtue signaling, we're on the side of the good guys. We've accomplished something. We've made a statement. Ha ha, you're a convict. Ha ha, your guy is a convict. We're on the side of the good guys. You're on the side of evil. That's what it's about, ultimately. And you're right, it's a terrible thing. This is how little you care about the health and well-being of America, that the fact that you're trying to embarrass him. And all the jokes are like, oh, some countries don't allow American convicts to come in there to visit. So he's going to need special permission. He's going to have to ask mommy for permission to visit Canada or to visit Ireland or whatever, or any other dozen nations that don't allow him in. Are they really going to, would any country say, no, we don't want the President of the United States visiting us because he's a felon? Obviously, they'll be ecstatic to have him visit. It's a big covet to them to have him visit. Sorry, it's a big honor to them to have you have the greatest president of the United States coming in here, who's the hottest thing on earth. Trust me. Any country on earth is ecstatic to have President Trump come visit. and they don't care about some law that they have about convicted felons not visiting, they waive that without even thinking about it. They'll be inviting him and say, please, please come. Every one of these countries which doesn't allow American convicted felons in would happily be inviting him, please, please, please come. He's not going to need a special dispensation. But the idea that they could try and embarrass him, the idea that they can drag him through the mud, the idea that hopefully this steals some of the luster from his star, which seems to have risen beyond their grasp, beyond their comprehension, the idea that they can take away from him and try and make him look weaker is something that's very appealing to the left. Do they care for even a freaking moment? How does this affect, as old guy here is correctly pointing out, his ability to negotiate with other leaders? No, they don't care. They don't care. The fact that it might make him look weaker to other leaders, or more, or in some way that he's handicapped by something or is strapped by something or whatever, that they're curtailing his effectiveness. No, they look at that as a good thing. The less effective he can be, the better. The less effective he can be, the better. Because they assume he's going to be trying to do all sorts of evil things. And whatever it is he's doing is wrong, in their opinion. Whatever he's doing is wrong and is evil and immoral and corrupt. And we have to stop him at all costs. So right now they're essentially rooting for America to fail. We saw that in 2020, right? In 2020, the daily death toll we saw, which stopped 2 weeks after the election, was basically trying to say, here's the daily defeat of America. Let's celebrate the death of all these Americans as a real heart-rending tragedy that's all 100%, 110% Trump's fault. I can't believe he's injecting all these people with COVID. That's how they practically were making it sound. He's killing grandma and all these other crazy screams that they made. I mean, literally talking about people dying, and they were like cheering, like ecstatic about it. So you think that they're bothered by the idea that they're making him less effective as a leader? No, of course not. They don't care about that. These are not people who care about America or Americans. They care about that ultimately, at the end of the day, screaming from the rooftops about your belief of your expression of leftist ideology trumps everything. Every single thing. Everything. Everything. And part of that is we're going to try and stain the President of the United States. As I said on X Space earlier today, and I'll say again right now, trust me, we're having a better winter than they are. A much, 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 much better winter than they are. Much better. Because if you had a choice of him being acquitted and losing the election, or being convicted and winning the election, you take the conviction and the win 1,000,000 times, and you would have paid thousands of dollars to have that over the other. So trust me, these are bitter, 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 small little people who are desperately trying to lash out at Trump. Now, I should point out to you, we talked about the appeal, and there's all these different bases for why he should be successful on appeal. This is one of the drawbacks of the unconditional discharge that I should point out to you. And it's a considerable drawback of the unconditional discharge if you're hoping for him to win on appeal. It comes down in a moment. Let me just check and make sure I didn't miss any rants. I did. See, I knew that was going to happen. I missed some rants. Let me go check on my rants. You Rumble folk, and I'm peeking in the ghetto right now. I want you to know, thank God, I'm blessed, very blessed, man. There's a whole bunch of YouTube chats that are sitting there waiting. I said, no, I have to check on Rumble. And that's what we're doing. Rosalian says they were trying to make it so you're a felon if you aren't qualified for Secret Service protection. I don't think it will happen, but now, maybe after midterms. I don't know. I don't think after midterms. I don't think that's going to happen. Barb loves Alaska with 20. First on Fox, the New York court assigned a new judge preside over the civil fraud case against President-elect Trump brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James, seemingly replacing Judge Engoron, is what I think you meant to finish there, right? Here's the link, Joe, from President Trump's Truth Social regarding the judge change. That link isn't working. When I pull up that link, I get this. I heard this story. Someone else mentioned this to me. And when I tried finding it, I couldn't find it anywhere. This is what I get for your link. Let me see if maybe he took it down. And I tried finding it. Court names new judge in Trump's civil fraud case before re-signing previous.
What are we celebrating?
I just found the perfect econ manager on Fiverr.
The company's website climbed in search.
A Fox News alert today, former President Trump facing the official deadline to come up with $454 million in that bond for his New York civil case. So
This is from March. Okay, we don't need that. New York court has assigned a new judge presiding over a civil fraud case against Trump brought by a New York. This is a civil case where he got hit with a $450 million judgment. Case and trial were handled by Judge Engoron. Hours later, the court put him back on the case. I don't know what that means. I don't know what to make out of that. Sources told Fox News Digital the court sent out an automated email at around 12:45 p.m. on Thursday notifying the parties that it had signed New York Supreme Court Justice Judith McMahon of Staten Island to the case. But several hours later, at 4:12 p.m., attorneys in the case received another automated message notifying that Arthur Engoron was assigned back to the case. A source close to Trump's legal team told Fox News Digital they're concerned with the back and forth. I don't even know what roles he would have left at this point. Case is pending on appeal. After the appeals court issues a decision, the case will be remanded to a lower court, which Engoron presided over during the trial. Remanded for what? It depends, I guess, what the appeal says, the result of the appeals. Yeah. I don't know what to make of this. I can't explain to you procedurally what was happening. This is a very unorthodox thing. I've never heard of a judge being taken off a case and then put back on. I have a lot of thoughts about Judge Engoron and some of the backward decisions that he issued. I don't think there's much of significance to take from that. I had seen it and I tried finding it. I couldn't find it anywhere. I'll tell you, I don't really know what to take from that. I'll tell you this. This is what Trump wrote after the decision from the Supreme Court. I appreciate the time and effort of the United States Supreme Court in trying to remedy the great injustice done to me by the highly conflicted acting justice who should not have been allowed to try this case. Every legal scholar stated unequivocally that this is a case that should never have been brought. I'm in that camp. In other words, I'm innocent of all the judges made up fake charges. This was nothing other than weaponization of our justice system against a political opponent. It's called lawfare. Nothing like this has ever happened in the United States of America. It should never be allowed to happen again. To this day, this highly political and corrupt judge has put a gag order on me, which takes away my First Amendment right to speak about very important aspects of the case. For the sake and sanctity of the presidency, I'll be appealing this case and I'm confident that justice will prevail. The pathetic dying remnants of the witch hunts against me will not distract us as we unite and make America great again. I'm glad that he had class with the way, even though the Supreme Court ruled against him, I'm glad he had class with how he dealt with referencing them. So, well, the rest of his stuff kind of heard before, right? We've heard most of it before, and I agree with everything he wrote there. I have thoughts about the likelihood of it being overturned and how this might work its way through the appellate court. But let me get through some of these chats first. What they should do, energize MAGA, do its flipping New York State governor mansion to Republican, then Trump could be pardoned and be done with it. If New York elects me governor, I will pardon Trump. I don't live in New York anymore. But if they do, I'll pardon him. I thought for sure SCOTUS would rein in Merchan and speak about illegitimacy of this case, not just for this judge, but other judges as well. They wouldn't do that in emergency application. They would do it later on. So they wouldn't do that in emergency application because this is just a thumbs up or thumbs down. We're granting the stay, we're denying the stay. So they wouldn't do it here. So, in fact, most of the time, they wouldn't even give you the 3 sentences that they gave here. Normally, they'd just be like, application denied. Nothing further. Application denied. The only reason they gave these sentences, this is why it took them so long, because they wanted everyone to know. They wanted everyone to know, and they wanted to send. If they didn't hear from Merchan that he's going to be giving an unconditional discharge, this is their way of telling him, you're going to give him an unconditional discharge. You're giving him that unconditional discharge. So that's essentially, that's what Roberts is doing. If he never got a hold of Merchan, that language where he says, in light of the stated intent to give an unconditional discharge, that's part of motivation here for us to deny this thing, is a way of saying, give him that unconditional discharge, otherwise we're going to overturn you. Right? So that's why I'm saying he's not facing a moment of incarceration, of any restriction of his freedoms altogether. Now, let me catch up on some of these chats and then I'll move forward. Some shyster judge putting out our president on probation on sentencing. F that. What the heck is going wrong with the Supreme Court to allow this crap show to continue? Institutional establishment judge be establishing. That's it. They're like, look, it's not going to end up harming him. It's not going to have any impact on him. And we don't want people to be talking bad about us. So we don't need to stick our nose in this. And since it's not having any effect on him, and he'll be able to be the same president he could be otherwise. So, yeah, we don't want to have people get mad at us. Essentially. That's what we got, essentially. The entire case is all about the U.S. Constitution, the past given to how it was trampled on by the lawfare. These judges are obtuse. I think obtuse is with an S. I'm telling you for next time. Pretty sure it's with an S. It's a good word, obtuse. I'm pretty sure it's with an S. But these judges are obtuse to not be able to see the repercussions of this entire. They're looking, like I said, he's thinking about his legacy. He's thinking about what will people say about me. I don't want them to say that I was Trump's little boy. I want them, and that I basically, because I'm conservative, that I'm all about that I was Trump's little B. So yeah, that's why and since it's not really hurting him anyway. Don't you remember during the COVID lockdowns, there was a thing. There was a whole thing with the rent abatements. Do you remember this? Where the federal government was giving money to help cover and hold. They passed a regulation which said that you can't charge rent to people during COVID, and it went all the way up to Supreme Court, and emergency basis, and none of these landlords are getting rent because there was all these laws which were basically saying no, we're stopping landlords from evicting anyone who's not paying rent, and we're making this whole rent abatement thing go on. And it went all the way up to the court. And what did they say? Wow, this is pretty unconstitutional. This is pretty terrible. But there's only 1 month left. You're like, what? But it's unconstitutional. There's only 1 month left. So what? Come on. It's just 1 month left. Who cares? It's like, so, and this happens a lot. And this is why I think, in a way, it sort of hurts him, the fact that he's getting his unconditional discharge. Because it's like, what ends up happening is people are like, well, it's not really affecting him anyway. He's president of the United States. Who the heck is going to stop him from buying a gun? And does he really need a gun anyway? He's got the Secret Service. Does he really need a gun? Why would he need a gun? So let him be a convicted felon. I can see the Court of Appeals saying, like, okay, we'll let this case stand. Is it good law? No, it stinks. It's terrible law. It's terrible law. We kind of like the idea that we can call him a convicted felon. I don't really like it so much. And is it really violent? It's not like he's in jail. It's not like he's facing repercussions. So is it really doing anything to him? And that's kind of the downside of this, because it is doing stuff to him. It's affecting his ability to be president of the United States. It's a terrible thing. But none of that stuff feels like it's going to affect him. They don't think it's going to affect. The institutionalists are like, it's not going to affect his presidency. It'll be Donald Trump. He's going to go out there. Everyone's going to invite him to their parties. Everyone's going to want to have him there. He's beloved by 100 million people out there, if not 3 times that across the globe. So he's going to be just fine. So if he can't vote, we're not really worrying about that so much. Every country's going to let him in. No one's going to say, no, we're not letting Trump in here. And how many good years does he have left anyway? There's all sorts of ways to rationalize this if you're an institutionalist. It's not really doing anything to him. And I think they kind of don't like him. And the idea that they can stick this convict label on him, I think that this is something that a lot of people don't like him, are very happy about that. And the fact that there's a perversion of our justice system as a result of that, I think a lot of them are of the opinion that everyone understands is there's the rules for everyone, and then there's the Trump rules, which are completely separate and different, which is garbage. It's not true. It's complete crap. It's insane. But I genuinely feel as if a lot of people out there are like, no, you see, there's general rules, but every once in a while you have a Trump, and that's got to have all sorts of different yardsticks. Is that logical? No. Is it sense? No. Is it fairness? No. Is it American? No. Is there anything remotely positive about it? No. It's twisted, perverted sickness. There's something deeply, deeply wrong with people who think like that, but that doesn't mean that's not a common thought pattern that millions of people, including those who have a significant say in various circumstances and events, do share that opinion. Speaking of legacy, Merrick Garland clearly cares about legacy, and his malice is quite palpable about Trump taking his seat in SCOTUS away. All lawfare is born from Biden and Garland. That is direct electoral interference. I agree with you 100%. It was completely election interference. Although you could look at it the other way, like when I started my talk with Destiny, which is, thank God for you guys. You elected Trump. You created him. You created him. He was that entity. You created him. There is no way on earth Trump rams through those primaries without even attending a debate. He did not attend. Remember, you might have forgotten. He did not have to go up to a debate, and he destroyed all comers in the primaries. Destroyed them. And as much as people loved him in 2020, there was some resentment. There was some disappointment. Some people didn't like the whole thing with COVID. People had forgotten how great a job he had done during the first 3 years of his administration. He was a forgotten entity before he really was. He was very, very much a forgotten entity. And every single time another indictment dropped, his popularity spiked more. More money's raised for donations. More money's pouring in. This guy literally, it's like he makes money like friggin' Elon. Every time they drop some other legal thing on him, you go hit him with a $90 million judgment. That just means he's going to raise $150 million over the next 3 months. That's every time they came after him, they grew MAGA. And more people who had nothing to do with MAGA just was like, what the hell is going on here? They all saw the lawfare you're talking about. They all saw the lawfare. America is in a complete agreement with you. And we know this because 77 million people came out there and made him the most popular Republican in American history. Not even close. Not even close. I mean, the most popular Republican in American history. To hell with Lincoln. Are you kidding me? No, the most, not even close. Reagan used to hold that mantle. Not even Reagan. It doesn't hold a candle. Not a candle. Yeah, there were people who didn't vote for him in 2016, who by the time 2024 rolled around were like, I would crawl over broken glass to go vote for this guy at this point. That's what they created. And that's only because of their lawfare. So you can sit there and say that this whole thing was lawfare, was electoral interference. And what I'll tell you is this: that was its intent, and it was the stupidest plan ever. It was the stupidest plan ever, because there is zero chance he wins the popular vote if there was zero indictments. Zero. No chance whatsoever. Not even close. Not even close. I don't even know if he wins the election. I don't even know that he wouldn't struggle to be the candidate. They made him. They made him our candidate. And then they just like, we're going to go after him again. We're going to start changing laws in New York to like all of a sudden now E. Jean Carroll go out there with her Cucamonga claims of like, oh, he was with me in a Bergman and Gerdorf, and I don't remember what year it was or what we were wearing, but what he said is it was kind of a turn on, but kind of rapey. What a stupid, insane thing she was saying there. $90 million. I'm going to go get me a yacht. I'm going to get everyone boats. This stupid weirdo woman who came across like she had less integrity than the other brand in a Bounty paper towel commercial. Seriously. What if I identify as John Smith and my pronouns are chief clerk? There. Now you're ready to troll. Now you're go get him. Go get him, Michael. Thank you. And to be clear, I'll check every 20 minutes. I've been a mem for 31 months and locals too, because I value your content. You're worth the wait. You're very, very kind. Thank you. Look, I try. My objective is to try and produce. I put a lot of effort into producing the highest quality I can. It might not look like I take it seriously, but I take this really seriously. Trump was never told what charges he was facing. Yep, that's true. He wasn't. That's part of my point. That denies Trump any hope of a fair trial. How do you defend against an unknown? I didn't know. No, so now you do. That's why I told you. They didn't tell him till they got down to the jury charges coming down. They're like, sort of a. It's not really this charge that's in the indictment. It's going to be something else. I mean, they told him, okay, let me explain to you. Okay? They told me he's being charged with this crime of business records. The law is, it was over here. What they told him was, there's a law in New York, a misdemeanor, which says it's illegal for you to maintain improper business records. Okay? If you do that because you have an unlawful intent. So now, if you were to create a ledger, you get one of those old style accounting ledgers, or you download QuickBooks and you maintain records that are not accurate for your business, for yourself personally, whatever. You maintain records and you store that away, lock it up in your own personal private thing. And those are inaccurate records. You never show them to anyone. You never share them with anyone. And somehow someone stumbles on it and finds it and says, what are these records? These records are not accurate. That right there is a misdemeanor. You've already, in the eyes of New York law, you've now committed a misdemeanor just for creating the records. If you create them with an unlawful intent for some unlawful purpose, even if you don't use them, but that was your motivation, and we can show there's an unlawful intent. That now becomes a low level, the lowest level felony. I think it's Class E felony in New York. You get a maximum of up to 1 year. Which means, so now we have this, that's what he's charged with. Maintaining false business records with an unlawful intent. So that he knew. But then the question became, well, what is the unlawful intent? That means you need to have another law that he's looking to violate. So now we got to come, okay, well, what's the law he's looking to violate? So we're done with this law. This is what he's charged with. But now we got to say, okay, in order for that charge to stick and become not just a misdemeanor but a felony, you need to establish that there's a law he's trying to break. What law is he trying to break? So I said, well, you're not allowed to try to win an election by wrongful means. So he's trying to win an election by wrongful means. This is the felony that he's trying to break when he's maintaining these records. Okay, well, what are the wrongful means? Now you need to find another statute. Literally, there's 3 layers here. So, what were those wrongful means? Never told him. Never told him until they got to the jury charges. So he's like, what is he supposed to be stopping from? What is he stopping them from? What's he supposed to be defending from? Then they told the jury, Judge Merchan in his jury instructions said, here's 3 potential unlawful ways he could have been trying to steal the election. One of them was paying too much taxes. It's a crime to pay too much taxes. So if he was paying too much taxes, breaking the law by paying too much taxes for the purpose of improperly trying as the improper way of trying to win an election. So he's paying too much taxes to win an election, and that is now being used as part of his wrongful, and he has his wrongful ledger there. Boom, that's your felony. That's what he's convicted of. There you go. He paid too much taxes. That was one of 3 different things they said could be wrongful. I don't remember what the other 2 were, but they were similarly like stupid. So when the media is covering it, because they don't bother walking anyone through all this nonsense, when the media is covering it, it's a much easier sell and much simpler if you just say the Stormy Daniels affair, the hush money case, because the monies, because the entries, the ledger entries, all related to payments that went to Stormy Daniels. But there's nothing illegal about making those payments to Stormy Daniels. There's nothing illegal if in fact everything that Stormy Daniels said was true, which sounded to me to be rather made up and kind of hokey and ridiculous. If you actually read the transcripts of her testimony, it sounds like she read it from some bad Harlequin romance novel. But and you can hear the cheesy 70s music playing in the background, practically saying like he's sitting there with a sash and swinging his tassel around or something like that. I don't even know what the hell is happening here in this whole thing. And then he paid her to silence her, supposedly, and disregard all the times that she swore absolutely never, ever had coitus with this man. Over and over and over and over again, swearing. She never, ever did. Now all of a sudden coming and saying, oh, yeah, we totally did, and he paid me off for it. And the lies that his former attorney Michael Cohen admitted to, during the course of his testimony on cross-examination, he's like, yeah, when I said that on direct, that was a lie. That wasn't true. I mean, lousy. And yeah, he was someone who admitted to perjury in the past. So yeah, that was the heart of this case here. Is, oh my gosh, this crazy felon who paid too much taxes. I mean, it's insanity. It's insanity. The felon who paid too much taxes. But they don't call it that case. They call it the hush money trial. Even though there's nothing illegal, because if everything they said about what he was doing was that he's paying her off to keep her silent, that's 100% legal. You can pay people to remain silent about what happened in your business, 100% legal. You could pay someone to remain silent about some incident where you split your pants, You can pay someone to remain silent about consensual sexual encounters. There's absolutely nothing illegal about it at all. That's not the wrongful thing. It's just that they're saying he put it there because he was embarrassed about the whole situation. That's why he put it there. That way. Even though he had been doing it, they're saying he's doing it for the purpose of trying to win an election, even though he had been doing it literally for the last 20 years. Anytime he paid someone off. He'd been paying people off left and right for 20 years. But this, he's paying her off for winning the election. It was insane, this case. It was so stupid. You had to be a crazy triggered leftist to come to this the conclusion that he was guilty of anything here. And yet, somehow in New York, they managed to find 12 people who came to that conclusion. But yes, all the way up until jury charges, no one knew what that underlying thing is that was the wrongful conduct, the wrongful way he was trying to win an election. And then the judge said, you don't have to agree on which of those three things it is. You can have different bases. But as long as each of you think that you pick one of those bases, that's fine, which that raises all sorts of legal questions. How do you have a jury convicting him unanimously when they don't even agree about what he was intentionally doing wrong? I give you the detailed breakdown. That's the detailed breakdown as to so many of the problems with this particular case. Let me check the Rumble Ghetto, make sure you guys are behaving. All good. Okay. Let me check up my my diggers. My diggers, are my diggers okay? Yes, what Judge Joe Brown had to say about Judge Merchan's sentencing. It's on Stephen Gardner's YouTube program today. Miracle Trini, can you share the link? You got plenty of love, Joe's sound guy. I noticed in your comment, I commented about he's dead, Jim, 45 minutes ago. Plenty of love for you guys. As locals, he said this. Every 20 minutes, I've been a member for 31 months. And locals too. That's locals as well for almost 31 months, not local for 2 months. I knew that. You've been a digger. You were there when we created the term digger. Adrian's old school. Raskin does not die from cancer. It just gets stronger. I think cancer seeks him out. I think he uses him as a host. Spreads to others. Trump defeated Hillary in the swamp. Can't stand it. Can't stand ya. Charles Go. The Injustice Department is convicting Trump of a made-up crime. Could we expect anything when our judicial system has something called legal fiction? It's all in the eye of the beholder. How many of you knew that the wrongful conduct is that he paid too much paid too much taxes? Paid too much taxes. Funny. Go Irish. Go Irish. It's your birthday. Go Irish. What? Thanks to the air support, Joe and company. Those lasers were killer. Watch the Jets' next QB pick in the Natty. Dank Brandon out. In the Natty? Welcome to 47th President of the United States and convicted felon, President Donald J. Trump. That is what every time he's introduced will go through everyone's minds. Yeah, convicted of paying too much taxes. Roberts will be the justice who led SCOTUS to destroy the institution of the U.S. Constitution. The repercussions are not about Trump, but the country and its posterity. Obtuse is the same as being adult. Oh, I know. Doesn't it look better with yes, though? Felon DJT cuts aid to those who call him one. Did everyone see kind of like get jealous of Trump talking to sugar daddy Obama? I'm gonna get there. That's part of what I got coming up here. It's coming up. I know I'm almost at the 2-hour mark, and I haven't gotten to the LA stuff yet. My husband is upset too. Maybe enjoys the DP pegging her from her and Obama. I don't know. If the sentencing goes through, which it looks like it's going to, isn't there summits and things that would block Trump from attending if he's a felony convict, even if discharged? No one is going to see. Here's the thing: this is, and I was talking about this, what the law is, and then there's the execution of the law. In this circumstance, everyone understands that even though the law is that he can't go somewhere or can't do some things, that because he's President Trump, he'll be allowed to do that. That's the expectation. That no one's going to say, oh, no, we can't have you in our country because you're a convicted felon. They're not even going to make him ask permission. They're just going to let him come. And no one's going to risk an international incident by refusing him. No one's going to risk an international incident by saying, by making him ask permission or trying to arrest him for coming in despite being a convicted felon. So because of these things, everyone's expecting that no one's really going to hold his feet to the fire about the fact that he's a convicted felon, other than a bunch of leftist tods who are going to come out there and giggle like little girls. He's a convict! He's a convict! Which is all this is, ultimately. That's how they're looking at it. I'm not saying that it's no big deal that he's a convicted felon. I'm with you that this is a breach of our Constitution and it weakens the institutions that we have and it harms his ability to project the same type of leadership. I'm totally with you. I'm saying from the minds of institutionalists, they're like, it's not going to really have an impact on it. Pence looked like he got caught banging the neighbor's kid. The 3 predicates were 1 tax law violation, 2 New York State campaign violation, 3 federal campaign violation. Yeah. All right. Appreciate you. I appreciate you clarifying that for me, Economath. Democrats' known definition changes unknowingly change the entire perception of what it means to be a felon in the USA. Could have future consequences. Like I said, they don't think it will because they think everyone knows. It's like everyone knows there's special rules for Trump. Everyone knows. And then we're going to pretend when it's applying to him that it's not applying to him because there's special rules. They literally rewrote the law in New York, abandoning the statute of limitations with respect to defamation, with respect to being able to prosecute someone for sexual charges. They literally rewrote it after there was a conversation at a party where someone said, I heard this woman say that she was assaulted by Trump like 18 years ago in Bertha Goodman. And this got back to Kathy Hochul, and she literally rewrote the law to say for this next year, any statute of limitations for this particular crime is hereby dispensed with, and no one can defend based on statute of limitations for the next 12 months. I mean, it's insanity. You want to talk about lawfare? That's not just lawfare of a DA. That's lawfare of literally rewriting laws. And they knew that if they specifically made a law, you can go after Donald Trump. That would be a habeas corpus issue. Technically, this was still probably an ex post facto issue, but he still got hit with it. Question is: the plea form up for a felony to misdemeanor gold in New York? I don't think so. Yes. Any thoughts about the red heifer? Really? It's been a long time since someone asked me about the red heifer. I have no thoughts about the red heifer. I have 0 thoughts about the red heifer. Let me see if they got me that link. Everyone tells me I should check out Judge Joe Brown. Let me see if I can find that. This show's gonna run forever tonight. It's on what? Stephen Gardner? By the way, if you can, while you're here, you can like, share, and subscribe. I'd be most obliged. Most obliged. It's a good time. It's a good time to hit the like button. It's 37 minutes. Oh my God. 37 minutes. 37 minutes. I never even heard of the Stephen Gardner guy. He's got 1.8 million subscribers. Who is he? Who's Stephen Gardner? 37 minutes. I mean, I'm a big fan of Judge Brown. 37 minutes. Oh my God. I don't know if I can sit through all this. We'll see. You mentioned earlier a conversation with Destiny. When was it? Any hopes you'll upload the video to your channel? How to go, Cult Leader? I can upload it to my channel. I meant to actually delete a whole bunch of stuff and I didn't. I can upload it. You have hopes. Over the weekend, maybe. We'll see. Comments not identified as red but black, so black heifer. Really? 37 minutes. All right, let's see how this goes.
Lucky enough to be joined by Judge Joe Brown to go through some of the biggest stories in the news. Judge, thank you so much for joining me again.
My pleasure.
So I don't know if you saw this or not in the news, but President Joe Biden said he's seriously considering a preemptive pardon of Dr. Anthony Fauci and former House Representative Liz Cheney. To my knowledge, neither of these people have been convicted of a crime
or charged.
From a legal standpoint. As president, can he do this? Should he do this? And doesn't this just make them look guilty?
Well, there is that onus of being pardoned for something. It says, what do you get pardoned for? But it's not unprecedented. In fact, Abraham Lincoln preemptively pardoned a number of people who hadn't even been charged. Barack Obama issued a pardon to a number of executives for British Petroleum with that Gulf oil rig blowout some years ago that caused all that damage before they even showed up in court. So it's not unprecedented. That's part of the pardoning powers that are bestowed upon the president by the Constitution itself. Essentially, he does not have to provide any justification. He's unanswerable, that he can pardon anyone of any federal offense that he chooses. Technically, it even looks like a president could pardon themselves. So nobody has put themselves in that position ever, and never have we had a situation where a president wound up pardoning a close family member. Not even Bill Clinton did that with his brother, who had a problem during his administration. So I'm not surprised with Joe Biden. He's been an unscrupulous scoundrel since day one. 1988, he was trying to run for president, but it came out that he had a little problem with plagiarism when he was in school, and then there were all of the misrepresentations. And I look at his career, and since his mid-20s, his entire source of income is supposedly a government check for some government job or office, but yet he's become a multimillionaire, which does not equate unless there's under-the-table bribery. He's been mediocre his entire career. He's jumped on the bandwagon after holding his finger up a lot of times to see which way the wind's blowing, and he's done a lot of damage to the American system, particularly when it comes to procedural matters pertaining to federal law and the trial of various and sundry criminal offenses. So, for example, he, Byrd, and Stennis and Eastland sponsored legislation that wiped out federal parole and probation except for youthful and minor offenses. So people have to serve effectively 95, 96% of their sentences, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, except it's been combined with some procedural aspects of the law that they are responsible for changing that allow a prosecutorial staff to intentionally charge people with criminal offenses, knowing that there's scant likelihood of a conviction just for the purpose of disabling them from doing something that somebody, for unspecified reasons, might be thinking is undesirable. That's how we got the start of what we call lawfare. In other words, you can't get a conviction, but you file the charges anyway. An exemplar of that is the 34 so-called felony convictions of Donald Trump. There is no way conceivable, no conceivable way that those are going to stand on an appeal. They're so flawed. But it was a nice talking point, a nice way of tying somebody up during a campaign to achieve a political purpose, which, by the way, might wind up in some conspiracy indictments against people with appropriately appointed special counsel.
There's no such thing as unpardoning.
So
the Constitution specifically says that the president has plenary authority to pardon whomever he wants for many crimes or commute their sentence. There's nothing saying that he has a power to undo a pardon.
It's this thing, lawfare, that can be attributed to Joe Biden, and that's a problem because he's a hack. And through the auspices of his son that he pardoned, we should have had a big, nasty can of worms opened up. Now, I happen to be in a position to have taken my leisure to go through the downloads of the 3 Hunter Biden laptops. And you will note that the press has completely misled the public by talking about the laptop singular. It's 3 of them. And there was a thing that Fox did that I was the judge over. It was a moot proceeding. We had a pretty representative jury. And the question was whether there is probable cause to believe that Hunter Biden and others committed violations of the Foreign Agents Registration Act laws. The mock grand jury found there was, and I would concur. And when you read the laptops, you could see it. So it's going to be something I think that will backfire on the current president, because by pardoning his son, what he winds up doing is removing criminal liability from Hunter Biden, which means Hunter Biden will no longer be able to evoke the Fifth Amendment. You have a right to remain silent, etc. And he can be called and compelled to give testimony as a witness.
This is something that a lot of people say, and I personally philosophically disagree with. So, the Fifth Amendment is a basis for a lot of people to get out and testify. We saw in the Young Thug case in Georgia how they took little Woody aside or into judges' chambers and said, we're giving you immunity here, so now you have to testify. And the judge said, I'm going to keep you in jail until you testify. This does not make any sense. The reason it doesn't make any sense, especially with respect to RICO charges, but really any charges if you think about it, is just because you get immunity from one particular entity does not give you immunity from being prosecuted in other realms. So while I hate everything about the Bidens, and I think they're terribly corrupt and evil and terrible human beings, and that Joe Biden is easily the most corrupt president we've ever had. It's not even close. He's sold out and embarrassed the hell out of this country in ways that forever damage our reputation. I still think that philosophically, fundamentally, I have a problem with saying, well, Hunter, now that you have a pardon, you're exempt from prosecution, so we can go after you. Really? Really? He can't face RICO charges in Delaware? Can't face RICO charges in California? Can't face state charges anywhere? Of course he can. So a lot of people say this, and a lot of prosecutors try saying, now that you have immunity, you must testify. And we even saw Judge Glanville in that case embarrass the hell out of himself by trying to make that claim to little Woody. But bottom line is, just because the state prosecutor is giving him immunity, that doesn't protect him from federal charges. And even when it comes to federal charges, by the way, it's one thing with a pardon. Pardon is much broader than anything a DA can give you, because that gives you from all federal crimes anywhere in the country. But when a DA gives immunity from one particular jurisdiction, I'm going to share with you all a little dirty secret that a lot of people don't know. That in case you ever, God forbid, find yourself in the crosshairs of the government, you need to be aware of something that's very, very important. You're facing federal charges from someone. Let me tell you this story about a woman you might have heard of by the name of Ghislaine Maxwell. This case I followed, went to her trial, covered it and reported on it day by day, twice a day. I did a bunch of legal research on this particular case. And one of the defenses that she raised when she was looking to get out of this case prior to it the trial commencing was she said, whoa. You can't prosecute me. Jeffrey Epstein negotiated a plea deal down in Southern Florida where he got immunity specifically for himself and for me and another woman as well. So I got this immunity. That's protecting me. And it's a deal here that was signed down by this judge by this DA down in Florida, where they said I got immunity. How the hell are you prosecuting me? Judge Allison Nathan, who's a very, very smart judge who ended up being raised up to the Second Circuit, really smart woman. And she handled the trial with such professionalism. I was very impressed by her in a lot of different ways. Judge Allison Nathan wrote, no. It's well established that if you get immunity from one U.S. attorney in a particular district, that only protects you in that district. And that you could be charged with crimes in a different district. So if you get immunity from the Southern District of New York, you could be charged in the Eastern District of New York. Or Southern District of Florida, you could be charged in the Southern District of New York. So that means, what the hell is the immunity isn't worth the paper it's written on? It's not worth anything. So he's sitting here saying this could blow up in his face. This could blow up in his face because, hey, now that he's got the immunity, really? He doesn't have immunity from state charges. So that's if I was his lawyers, that's what I'd be saying. You stop complaining. You complainer. I cry when my dad cut up onions. Onions was my dog. Good night. Let me get it. I want to get into other things. I don't feel comfortable stealing Stephen Gardner's work here. I'll give a link to this in case some of you want to watch the rest of this. But yeah. So even though his interview is good, I'm gonna move on from it. Economist, 18 U.S.C. 6002 allows Congress for federal prosecutors to grant immunity to state crimes. SCOTUS has upheld its predecessor statute back around 1960. Well, if it can, great. If you get it, great. Be aware of it, because apparently Epstein's lawyers weren't. All right. I haven't checked out 18 U.S.C. 6002. I'll take your word for it, though. You sound like you've done it. So I'll take your word for it. I do want to get to the LA stuff, and I'm already 2.5 hours in, 2 hours and 17 minutes in. Cover LA really fast. Yesterday we were talking about how in LA a lot of the insurance carriers canceled their coverage of Californians several months back. This is Rob Schneider, actor, comedian Rob Schneider, who's very right-leaning, big Trump supporter, saying, F you, State Farm, screw you and all your phony commercials. You're a pile of crap for canceling insurance policies of Californians. I'll never use State Farm insurance ever again. Well, that made me check. And then I found this in here. Quartering was saying, State Farm pulled out of California because of regulation and price fixing. You're mad at the wrong people. Call up your boy Gavin Newsom and ask him why they left. And I looked into this, and what I found was this is indeed true. Back in March of last year, we're in 2025 now. March 2024, they said State Farm won't renew homeowner in coverage for 72,000 Californians, California homes and apartments. State Farm will discontinue coverage for 72,000 homes and apartments in California starting this summer, the insurance giant said this week, 9 months after announcing it won't issue new home policies in the state. The Illinois-based company, California's largest insurer, cited soaring costs, the increasing risk of catastrophes like wildfires, and outdated regulations as reasons it won't renew the policies of 30,000 houses and 42,000 apartments. The decision was not made lightly and only after careful analysis of State Farm's general financial health. Should we listen to this? Should we listen?
What am I going to do now for insurance? So what does this mean for current State Farm home insurance policyholders in the state of California?
All right, for right now, this is a story that mostly applies to people who want to be State Farm policyholders. It's going to...
Well, anyhow, the move comes as California's elected insurance commissioner undertakes a year-long overhaul of home insurance regulations aimed at calming the state's imploding market by giving insurers more latitude to raise premiums while extracting commitments from them to extend coverage in fire risk areas, the news group said. Yeah, because what happened was this. They put caps. They put a cap on what insurance carriers can charge. Insurance carriers said, we can't do this. We can't afford this. This is not worth it. There's too much risk, and we're not allowed to charge what we need to charge in order to provide coverage. So what happened here was you had Gavin Newsom basically saying, or his insurance commissioner saying, aren't we going to look like such noble for the people that we're clamping down on those big rich insurance carriers by telling them you can't charge outrageous prices to Californians and rip them off. And what does insurance carriers say? We can't afford to do business here. It's too much risk and too little reward. When you have such high level risk of all these different wildfires that pop up in this country, in this state all the time, and now you want to cap how much we can charge to cover these multi-million-dollar homes, can't do it. So yeah, you want to know why there's insurance carriers that pulled out? It's because Gavin Newsom decided to cap them on what they can charge. Way to go, Gavin. Way to go. You're for the people. You're big help. Big help. Big help. That was one thing I wanted to cover for you. I also want to share with you just some of the images that I found of the arson that was going on, or just how bad the fires were. I'm not saying it was all arson, but some of it was definitely, it seems like it was arson. From a plane. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Look at that. Look at that. It's from an airplane. Yeah, how big those fires must be. It's much bigger than a swimming pool. Each of those little orange spotlights. You wouldn't see a swimming pool from that distance. So that was one thing I wanted to show you. Also wanted to share with you, sorry, this thing here. Look at this. This is arsonists caught on camera setting fires in Santa Monica. This is happening in otherwise non-burning urban areas around Los Angeles. Absolute mayhem.
We're at 302 Pico, and people are lighting fires now. You can see they lit a fire. These guys, not all the people there, but some of those guys lit that fire, and they're actually, the trees caught fire, and then the palms are catching fire. So civilians are now lighting fires down in the so-called, flats around Santa Monica, Venice. So be safe out there. Fire department's been dispatched. We don't have enough water to put this thing out, but we're supposedly on the way. We're at 302.
Awesome. Good times in California. And this is what one of our congresswomen is saying. Lunatics. Corporations got us into this mess, but even they can't escape the devastating reality of climate change. You friggin' lunatic. Sitting here celebrating as McDonald's is on fire. Look how fast that wind is going. Wow. That looks scary as hell. I don't know who's filming this. You gotta be out of your mind. This is crazy. Those trees can rip in half and just spread fire hurtling everywhere like a fireball. Unbelievable. Wow. Friggin' scary. Want to see some of the carnage? Look at this. Look at this. I couldn't believe this. This is drone footage of areas that have been destroyed. These were houses. There's a whole neighborhood leveled. There's one house there that stood up. Crazy. Look at this. It's a cemetery. This was obviously a vibrant community that is a cemetery. Wow. Wow. Heartbreaking. Wow. Oh, that was very powerful. Meanwhile, on to Karen Bass. I don't know if this video, I don't know how accurate this video is, but I saw it and now you will too. I haven't fact checked any of the facts we're about to see, but this is a 3-minute breakdown of Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass that I was like, I want to share this one with my audience.
November 7, 1983. Remember this date, but first, let me introduce you to Karen Bass. Back in the 1970s, community activist Karen Bass went on at least 15 trips to Cuba, many with a group known as the Venceremos Brigade, a Marxist group started by the Castro regime to subvert American interests, weaken democracies, and spread communism around the world. Founded in 1969, the Venceremos Brigade organized trips to Cuba every year for half a century. They attracted the most radicalized and delusional segments of the American left, including overtly Maoist and pro-Soviet communist groups. In fact, a Los Angeles police investigator who infiltrated the group testified to Congress saying that
to me, I actually find less credibility because of the background music and the thong. It sounds like it's trying too hard to be dramatic, but at the same time, I cannot refute any of these facts. If any of you know them to be inaccurate or accurate, please let me know. I'm very curious about it. But yeah, what he's about to go on is to like just exactly how radicalized this Marxist is.
To be a member of the brigade, you had to be confirmed as a Marxist-Leninist, as a brigadista, and then moving up the ranks to organizer for the Venceremos Brigade. Karen Bass visited Cuba every 6 months. Their mission? To radicalize young, impressionable American leftists in terrorist tactics and guerrilla warfare. Members of the Venceremos Brigade were even taught how to make bombs.
Jesus Christ.
Karen Bass admits on her many pilgrimages to Cuba, she went to see Fidel Castro speak several times, even calling him charismatic. And upon his death, praised him, saying, "The passing of Commandant en Jefe is a great loss to the people of Cuba," even though the people of Cuba see him as a dictator who impoverished their island. Another group, the M19, took its belief in revolutionary anti-imperialism to extremes, violent extremes. The M19 was the first and only women-created and women-led domestic terrorist group. Since their founding in 1978, M19's tactics escalated from robbing armored trucks and abetting prison breaks to building their own explosives and carrying out terrorist bombings. From 1983 to 1984, M19 bombed an FBI office, the Israel Aircraft Industries Building, the South African Consulate in New York, DC's Fort McNair, and Navy Yard, which they bombed twice. But that wasn't enough for them. On the night of November 7, 1983, the M19 called the US Capitol switchboard and warned them to evacuate the building. Minutes later, the M19 bombed the north wing of the US Capitol. November 7, 2023 marks 40 years since the M19's bombing of the US Capitol. Members of the M19, like Susan Rosenberg, traveled to Cuba with and were radicalized by the Vence Ramos Brigade. The South Los Angeles Vence Ramos Brigade was led by Karen Bass, who is now mayor of Los Angeles.
So he's not saying she's M19. He's saying she's the head of the Los Angeles wing of the Vence Ramos, who trained M19. There you go. That's Karen Bass. That's Karen Bass right there, according to Errol Weber. Errol Weber makes that claim about her. And that brings us to this. Elon Musk shared this out, saying, this is not parody. The scariest part of this woke nonsense is when she admits she's not strong enough to carry a man out of a fire, but it's really the man's fault for being stuck in the situation.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better.
No. I got to tell you something. God forbid I'm in a rough situation and I see a black person, a Muslim, a strong Muslim. I don't care. I don't care if he's Latino. I don't care. I just want the person to look strong enough to carry out the job. Oh, this is a person who identifies. Thank God I'm being saved by someone who identifies with me. You want to hear people who don't care? You want to hear examples of people who don't care about whether or not the person looks like them? Someone who needs a liver. Someone needs a liver. They don't care about, I hope this is someone who I can identify with. No, they need a freaking liver. Someone needs a heart transplant. They don't care. They're literally living with that inside of them for the rest of their body. But it's not someone who looks like them. They can't identify. You stupid? It's like, how stupid are you people? This is what we talk about when we say dangerously stupid. Where just the message is much more important than actual result. As she's about to explain. People asking, is she strong enough to do this?
Situation better? Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
You think that's a good response? That's his fault he's in a fire? So you say you can't do it. You're right. But it's his fault. What the hell's wrong with you? This is psychopathic. Unbelievable. Got himself in the wrong place. You're in the wrong place. You're in the wrong place. If you can't get the job done, you're in the wrong place. Unbelievable, these people. That's Marxist-Leninist thinking right there. What's this type of smile? Twisted, sick people. Speaking of twisted, sick people, I got a whole bunch of clips from today from the state funeral for Jimmy Carter, where we had a gathering of the world's most elite in celebration of Jimmy Carter's passing. Sorry, not celebration. That's the wrong term. That's the wrong term. Over here in this still frame that we got here. Is that that's not the right term, right? Let me check comments before I go on. Hold on a second. Yeah, soon as you stop skipping. I don't skip any chats. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I take chats very seriously. It looks like Dresden. Oh, you're talking about the bombings? Yeah, it looks terrible. Dear Joseph, the companies pulling out are mostly mutuals. They have tight profit caps. Painfully obvious space lasers were a devastating surprise. No one thought to worry about the space lasers hanging off of the coast of California. Having been through a house fire, I can tell you total loss is easier to deal with. They write a check and you're done. Smoke and soot damage takes months and 5 times the paperwork. Sounds logical. It's a good point. Right, poor Whitney Cummings. Christy must be mad. I don't know who that is. Number for 7 months, New York. NY Renal MD. Santa Ana winds and poor planning made this firestorm. It's not climate change. It's not climate change. Unless you experience the winds, you can't imagine. Danny On did a superb job covering the fires today. No doubt. She's awesome. Danny On Direct. Awesome friend of the show. Great person. Highly talented. So, I promised you I was going to show you the gathering of the elites. Look at this picture here. Look at this still frame. Before we even start the video, look at this still frame, okay? Mike Pence, Al Gore. Bill Clinton, Hillary. George W. Bush, Nancy Bush. Barack Obama. Sitting next to Obama, no one knows where Big Mike was today. I don't know what the hell happened there. Sitting next to Obama was Trump. Doug Emhoff, Kamala Harris down over here. And this is Jill and Joe Biden. Like I said, a gathering of the elites.
Started the year as the would-be Democratic presidential nominee.
That was Donald and Melania.
And we all know what happened after that. Again, you didn't see a particularly warm greeting between the first couple and the second couple, but
you didn't see it particularly. Even Tapper noticed. He's like, they don't seem like they really like each other. They're like spitting in each other's face. They come in there, sit down next to him. We don't like you.
The would-be Democratic presidential nominee, and we all know what happened after that. Again, you didn't see a particularly warm greeting between the first couple and the second couple.
She does look like that, Karen.
We are at a funeral, so one has to take that into account when trying to read the body language of the individuals there. Started the year as...
Look at that. Look at this gathering. Seriously. 3 vice presidents with their spouses and 5 presidents. Pretty crazy, right? Pretty crazy. Oh, and then the first lady over here also. So. And a first lady over here, a former first lady over here. Former first lady and the second man. But let's face it, second man is being very, very generous. He's almost certainly he's closer to the 102nd man than he is to the second man. The 87th man. Over here. Right here. There you go. All right. But I got more for you because this little gathering, this is pretty wild. It's a pretty wild gathering. You'll see. Can't hear anything. No one can hear anything. There's lots to see, though. Lots to see. I don't want to get this in the right order. This is clipped as, for a second there, Kamala thought Barack was talking to her. Look at the disappointment. What? Oh, he also chose Donald. You know she hates the seating arrangement. She's like, I want to sit next to Barack. I don't want to sit next to Joe. Or Jill. I gotta sit next to Jill. You sit next to Barack Obama, sit next to freaking Jill. It's interesting the way they sat them in order of their presidency, right? It's Clinton, Bush, Barack, Donald. And then the current president, Joe, and first lady and vice president sitting. So that's an interesting thing about the way they seated them. But look at this. Look at this. Some meme expert has to do something with this. Look at this exchange. You gotta be able to read. Someone read his lips for me. What's happening here? What is happening? Melania is looking on like you're talking in the middle of service. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what to make out of this. Yeah. So that I thought was an interesting clip there of the two, of Trump and Barack talking to each other. Look at this lengthy clip here. Again, this is crazy. Talk about the political elites. Thank God. I heard about this. He was paying $15,000 a month rent on that place, and it burned to the ground. I know. Pretty wild. Kind of looks so upset. She's so upset. Oh, great. I'm stuck sitting here next to Doug. The Bidens are late as usual. And I'm stuck sitting next to Doug. Why can't I be sitting with the cool people in row 2? Oh, I'm not going to be a president, a former president. It looks so. Look at Doug. Why does Doug always look like he's like he just like put in an enema like 3 minutes before we started filming? He's always got this look on his face, the pursed lips. Maybe that says lips disappear. He has no lips. That's what it is. You got no lips, Doug. And maybe you have no lips. They're not really pursed. and Donald and Barack are having like this whole lengthy conversation back there. Joe and Jill like showing up whenever the hell they damn well please. It was high quality art. I know because it sold for thousands and tens of thousands of dollars. So that's how I know it was high quality art. Don't you dare impugn his art. He's just saying Joe should play aces. He's not saying that. No one's. You're the only one who's been saying that. Nobody wants to watch me play Ace Attorney. Here, I'm gonna put a poll up here. Just for you, Malcolm. Just for you, Malcolm. I don't know why I'm doing this for a Canadian. All right. I'm putting a poll up right now. I'm going to ask if people would pay to join locals to watch me play Ace Attorney. So I'll bet you anything the answer is no. Anything. Oh my gosh, we hit our goal. We hit our goal. I got to gift memberships. Hold on. I got to gift memberships. Membership gifting. Membership gifting. Time to gift 5 members. Starting right now. There you go. Dog backwards. Welcome to the following. Michael Stetson. Welcome to the following. Beautiful messy ball. Welcome to the following. Kiki Lee. Welcome to the following. Oh man, we got some good ones in here. And finally, Jay Liebgott, another old timer. You guys, if you're not aware, the following is a gathering of like-minded individuals who are simply seeking to attain greater personal growth. Not at all a cult type of cult. It's just a place where people get together, try and grow and develop and better themselves and the societies, the micro and macro societies around them by becoming better and greater and more established, well-developed individuals so they can enrich the societies in which they are currently swimming. So those of you who joined or were brought into the following, welcome. I know you too well, Pow Angel. Don't even talk like that. Don't even talk like that. I was putting a poll up here for Malcolm. This is what you call framing a question. This is like doing the most unfairest framing I could possibly do. Would you pay $5 a month to watch Joe play Ace Attorney on Locals? Good luck, Malcolm. Yes or hell no? If you were Trump and could whisper in Obama's ear, would you make a dirty joke? I think this merits a poll. We got another poll up already. I didn't see this before. Send best meme of this via WhatsApp. Yes, whatever I get, that's really good. I'll send you, Shy. I definitely want that conversation. I want some memeographer to just what's the best joke you can put in there. Trump, what's so funny about Biggest Diggest? He has a wife, you know. Is that a Big Mike joke? Is it? Because you could have worded that he is a wife, you know. The place Hunter tried to pay rent with. Oh, we got that one. Doug is practicing smell. That was bad. New tracksuits have better performance for digging. Maybe they do. Maybe they do. I have to check on my vote. How's my voting coming? See? Everyone's saying hell no. There you go. That's how you rig a poll. That's how you rig a poll. I know how to rig a poll with the best of them. With the best of them. Breck Nichols hit me over here saying, Joe, if you call 911 and my first responder is a 5'5", 71-year-old overweight white guy, I'll think, oh, this guy really gets me. Now we're both going to... That's funny. I don't know if I read that well enough. I'm going to pull this out so I can show it to you because it's funny. I really like this. I really like this. That was funny. Read this one more time because that was really good. If I call 911 and my first responder is 5'5", 71-year-old overweight white guy, I'll think, oh, this guy really gets me. Now we're both going to die. It's true. That's what you would be thinking. So stupid. It's funny because it's true. Wait till Biggest hears of this. Let me start clearing out the cache. Start landing my plane. Clearing out the cache. What is this? No, I'm not doing that now. That's too long. That's too long. I'm not doing that one. I'm glancing through my different things here to make sure I didn't miss anything. Make sure I think I got it all. Oh, yeah. No. Never mind that. I didn't say anything. Nothing. Nothing. You don't need it. It wasn't meant for you. It wasn't meant for you. Not this thing. Cleaning out. I think I'm just going to go. Oh, yeah. I knew I had one more clip. I knew I had one more clip from the funeral that I wanted to share with you. This was one more clip from the funeral that I wanted to share with you. This is of Jill and Joe arriving at the funeral.
We see now President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden being escorted to their seats. There seems to be some kind of tension between Jill Biden and Kamala Harris. Oh my God, Jill Biden and Kamala Harris just started fighting.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I think the only thing I got left for you here is really a public service announcement. It's a public service announcement. I think we're going to close the show out with this public service announcement because you all need to know. You all need to know. You all need to know what to do. This one's really for the ladies. It's really meant, this last thing here is meant for the ladies. I'm going to pass. Definitely passing on that. Anyway, I read that, I don't like it. So, this public service announcement is meant for the ladies. It's meant for the ladies. Okay? So, guys, you can tune out for a minute here, okay? All right, ladies, just us. Sometimes, unfortunately, given all that we've seen in this society, you're going to find yourself, and you know what I'm talking about, when you're in a situation where you're facing the patriarchy. It's rearing its face there. Its ugly face right there in front of you. And you're like, what do I do with this freaking patriarchy that's this ugly, hideous patriarchy that's so blatantly standing there staring me in the face? It's just like this whole offensive patriarchy. How do I protect myself from this patriarchy that is invading in my personal space, is stepping all over me, is basically trampling my rights as a woman? I'm sure many of you, if you probably feel that 3 or 4 times a day. And if so, and you find yourself at a loss, not sure how to handle it, I found a woman who's able to help direct you as to how you can best deal with those gross, vile Neanderthals who can't help but spill their patriarchy all over the place. So if you ever find yourself in one of those circumstances, this is the woman right here who's going to walk you through how to handle yourself, how to have best self-defense against patriarchy, and in particular, misogyny.
You interrupted me. You interrupted me. That was my idea. I just said that. That was my idea. I just said that.
This is perfect self-defense from misogyny. Someone tries taking your idea. This is what this woman has it down cold. She's like a black belt in misogyny self-defense.
That was my idea. I just said that.
This is like a kata right here. This is amazing.
I'd smile more if you didn't make me feel so uncomfortable.
You see how you got the whole little bear clause at the end there? Very key. Very key.
I'd smile more if you didn't make me feel so uncomfortable. I don't have time to explain the patriarchy to you right now. I don't have time to explain the patriarchy to you right now. I can tell you don't have any female friends. I can tell you don't have any female friends. Don't mansplain what gaslighting is to me. Don't mansplain what gaslighting is to me.
See, the only problem I have is I feel like this is culturally appropriated from black women. I think I feel like she's culturally appropriated from black women.
You're projecting your insecurities on me because you feel threatened. You're projecting your insecurities on me because you feel threatened. You don't need to touch my thigh when you talk to me. You don't need to touch my thigh when you talk to me.
No one wants to touch your thigh, honey. Trust me.
Don't take credit for my work.
I think that's my favorite one. Oh my God. I think that's my favorite one. Oh, that's great. That one is great. I picture Michael Scott doing that.
Don't take credit for my work. Don't take credit for my work. You're making me uncomfortable. You're making me uncomfortable. Your ex isn't crazy. Maybe you just didn't meet her needs. Your ex isn't crazy. Maybe you just didn't meet her needs. You sound uneducated. You sound uneducated. The joke wasn't.
Oh God. Oh my God.
Funny. The joke wasn't funny. You don't need to comment on my outfit. You don't need to comment on my outfit. For the girls and the gays anyway. I'm surprised you feel confident saying that out loud. I'm surprised you feel confident saying that out loud. You're gaslighting me. You're gaslighting me. Okay, I'm sensitive, but you're oblivious. Okay, I'm sensitive, but you're oblivious. Please don't speak on my behalf.
What?
Please don't speak on my behalf.
What's with the Tin Man? What's with the Tin Man move? I don't understand. I don't understand the Tin Man move. What is the Tin Man thing?
Please don't speak on my behalf. Please don't speak on my behalf. You interrupted.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Ladies, I hope you all took a valuable lesson there. Don't allow misogynistic, patriarchal Neanderthals to ruin your life. No, you just give them a hike. Kanza! Don't take credit for my work. Kanza! Don't take credit for my work. Kanza! We need more of this. We need a lot more of that. Clearly. A lot more. You're welcome. Wow, this is no different than the bad framing of the jury questions to get Trump. Come on, people, vote yes for Joe to play Ace Attorney. I'm sorry. I think it was totally fair. It's 2-1. People saying no, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. So there you go. What was supposed to do? What was supposed to do? 2-1. 2-1 people saying hell no. No. I wouldn't. And I'd be stepping all over uncivil law. I wouldn't do that to him. Joe, I will never be a real woman. That's true. That's true. Those dreams are dashed. Dashed, I say, dashed. Being insufferable is the key to success. There you go. There you go. Some people have it all figured out. They got it all figured out. All right. I think it's time for us to... I just hit the 3-hour mark. You know what that means. Time to turn into a pumpkin. Woo! All right. Tomorrow, I expect to be over on Layback Law. That's tomorrow, over Layback Law. That's probably going to be around noon. That's the expectation. I'm thinking, this is a serious, I do have to make a serious poll before you go. Before you leave, quick poll. Seriously, serious poll here. I don't really want to do it. I don't really want to do it. I'm thinking about the whole sentencing tomorrow, like the sentencing thing tomorrow. There's no way I'm going to New York for the sentencing. I'll tell you right now. If that's what your thought is, if you had a thought that I was thinking of going to sentencing, you should know that thought floated through my mind for roughly 20 seconds. 20 seconds I spent like just sort of mulling over, should I go to the sentencing? Then I realized that for me to get into the room, I would need to get there by no later than 3 o'clock in the morning and stay out in the freezing cold. And it is freaking cold. Certainly I have to wait there from 5 in the morning if I want to get in the room. I want to have a chance of getting in the room. That's not happening. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Especially when Trump isn't even going to be in the building. He's going to be in Mar-a-Lago somewhere because he can make a video conference. So I'm not doing that. Then I was thinking about doing a live stream with like updates as we await this. But I'll tell you right now, I have confidence that the Supreme Court spoke with Judge Merchan, and that's why they were very confident that he's going to get an unconditional discharge. So to me, this is like, I feel like this is, I will be shocked if anything but an unconditional discharge is what's issued. If he makes him pay a penny, I'll be shocked. Shocked, I say, shocked. If he makes him have any form of custodial care, I will be shocked. If he makes him report to a probation officer, I will be shocked. Shocked of anything other than an unconditional discharge. And a whole lengthy explanation as to how, for the good of the country, he's going to unconditionally discharge him. That's what I'm anticipating is going to come tomorrow. So I was thinking about live streaming it. I think Robert Gouveia might be live streaming it, and I would certainly recommend checking out his live stream if, in fact, he is doing it. I saw him making reference to the idea, and if he does do it, I would certainly recommend it because Robert Gouveia is based and awesome. So if he does do it, I would certainly check him out. I think that's the way I'm going to go. I'm going to pass the torch to him on this one, only because I'm not going to be there in person. And it's just not. It's just not. I thought about it, but instead, you want to catch me at noon? I will be. I do expect to be on Layback Law, and yeah, I think that covers it. What does that mean? I'm not ignoring it. I don't know what that means. Yeah. All right. That's my show. I'm sticking to it. Doing one quick last check over here and make sure I didn't miss anything in Rumble. Make sure that I'm good there. Am I good there? Am I good there? Yes. Let me check with my diggers. Good there. All right. You know what they say. Lamb meat's for they, them. It's not for you. And don't do it. Don't eat the bugs. Have a good night from Goldspeed.